Good morning, distinguished guests, Prime Minister, Ministers, Commissioner, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Margarita Šešelgytė, and I'm the director of the Institute of International Relations and Political Science at Vilnius University. And it is my great pleasure and honor to moderate such a timely, distinguished, and important event. Women in Law Enforcement. No matter how well off and developed the country is, gender is still an issue. Socially constructed differences create unequal relationship between women and men. And these unequal relationships are particularly prevalent in the areas which are considered masculine by nature. And these differences are based on the very long traditional beliefs, values, and stereotypes, which define women as beautiful souls and men as just warriors. And these stereotypes create certain obstacles for women entering the masculine areas of public life, such as politics, military, and law enforcement. Lithuania is celebrating 20th anniversary of its membership in the European Union. And I believe we've done a lot in achieving gender equality throughout these years. In particular, creating legal conditions for female to enter these masculine areas. However, gender-related stereotypes and values are still creating glass ceilings and preventing women from entering particular careers and pursuing particular careers in particular areas. Therefore, I truly believe that this event is very important, because to fight gender-related stereotypes takes time and a lot of talking and a lot of little small steps. So I salute Minister for this idea to gather very high-ranking women working in law enforcement area to talk, to share their experiences, and to find the ways how to help other women to enter this particular field and pursue their careers in this field. This session, this conference will be divided in two sessions. The first session will be dedicated to overviews, which will be brought from different countries, about the situations and the ways how those countries are helping women working in law enforcement. And the next session, the lighter session, maybe more interesting, when the women working in law enforcement institutions will be sharing their own experiences. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to the Prime Minister of Lithuania, Ms. Ingrida Šimonytė.
Thank you, Margarita. Dear Commissioner Johansson, dear ministers, dear friends, participants of the conference. First, let me thank the organizers for this excellent idea. And my hope is that this event will provide an encouragement and inspiration on an important road towards enriching the field of law enforcement with the skills and talents of women. Today, it's important to acknowledge and celebrate the invaluable contribution of women in law enforcement in Lithuania and beyond. These dedicated individuals exemplify resilience, commitment, and excellence in maintaining safety and order of our societies. In a field that is traditionally dominated by men, our female officers have shattered stereotypes and proven their ability to handle the complexities of law enforcement. Their diverse perspectives strengthen our institutions by fostering a more inclusive and effective approach to policing. It is very important to acknowledge and celebrate the stories of individuals breaking barriers, whether in gender stereotypes or in other fields. Unfortunately, there is still much to be done before we fully eliminate gender-based stereotypes. Some of the criticism towards women in high-level positions of responsibility is rooted in the stereotype that men are inherently better, stronger, and more rational leaders. Often the woman aspiring to an important position has to outperform her male competitors by a significant margin. There is still a gender imbalance in various sectors of law enforcement, with far fewer women, especially at the highest levels of management. This issue is not just a matter of fairness. Various studies show that increased participation of female officers contributes to greater quality of services and operational effectiveness, enhances communities' trust, and reduces corruption within security institutions. Based on this evidence, it is crucial to commit to promoting a more inclusive and gender-balanced environment in law enforcement. It is essential to provide equal opportunities for professional development, ensuring that women in law enforcement have the tools and support needed to thrive in their careers. It is important to appeal to male colleagues and encourage them to contribute to the promotion of gender equality by encouraging women, appointing them to key positions, and by stepping in when they see discriminatory or harassing practices. Emphasizing that gender equality is everybody's business. It is vital as it benefits not only women, but everyone. For many years, we've looked up to Scandinavian countries for the gender balance policies. However, today, Ukrainian women fighting at the front as soldiers, snipers, paramedics, etc., serve as the most inspiring example of the equal abilities and skills that both genders possess. On the greatest missions, such as defense of the homeland against raw aggression, nobody asks, and frankly, nobody cares about the gender, because it is a duty and an honor for all citizens to stand up and defend what is most dear to us. So today I invite you to use the framework of this conference to explore ways of empowering women in law enforcement and developing professional environments where their talents and aspirations are valued and embraced. I'm confident that we all are here not just to talk about the change, but also to be the change makers. As we honor the women who serve and protect our communities, let us pledge to cultivate an environment that respects their achievements, promotes gender equality, and empowers future generations of women in law enforcement and in other fields. I hope that today's event will encourage women, inspire policies, and lead to initiatives that will help achieve a better gender balance at all levels of administrative hierarchy. This effort will help create a world where skills and abilities, not gender, are what truly matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for very encouraging words indeed. It's skill and abilities, not gender, that should matter. And with these very important and encouraging words, I'd like to give the floor to European Commissioner for Home Affairs, Madam Ylva Johansson.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. And thank you, Prime Minister, dear Ingrida, for a very, very good speech. And I also for bringing up the role models of the Ukrainian women. I think that's really important. There's a lot of things to say about this important topic that we are discussing today. Just to start with one example, last week we gathered a lot of ministers of interior in Antwerp to launch the Port Alliance, where we're going to fight together with the ports, with customs, with police to fight organized crime and drug trafficking. We had 14 ports there, including the port of Klaipėda, and we had a press conference afterwards, and that was me, There was Annelies Verlinden, the Minister of Interior, the Belgian Minister of Interior, and there was Catherine de Boll, the Executive Director of Europol. And I got many comments afterwards. 3 strong women on the topic of fighting organized crime. And because it's not so common that it is like that. And I think when I look around this table, it's the same. A lot of strong women. And we are responsible, you are responsible for upholding the law and to fight crime. And there was a situation, and we all remember, when a woman in policing was the only woman in the room. And now, today, we have only women in the room. So I think this is a good way to discuss it. And thank you very much, Agne, for bringing us together. I think you are pioneering. I will come back to that. Because we really have a big problem. I looked into the statistics. Today in the European Union, 20% of police officers are women. Yeah? And we have policing of the community and for the community, but not by the community, because women are also underrepresented. And if you ignore half of the population, you will only get the job half done. It's not because women are better, but it's because that if you ignore half the population, you will be one-eyed. This is the way. That's why we need the gender balance. And when we look into the head of police, the police chiefs with a much worse situation, I will come back to that also. So a gender balanced environment, it's make sure that we can look with both eyes and make better decisions. 30 years ago, in 1994, was the first ever gender balanced government formed globally. That was in Sweden, and I was part of that government. And there was also a situation where the prime minister at that time, he called me and said, can you come and be minister? And I said, well, my twins are 4 months old. Yeah? How can I do this? And then he was very clear saying that I would like to have also young parents in my government, and they could not only be male. Yeah. So you have to have a clear idea that you want to have all these views because you think that makes us make better decisions. Now I'm part of the first ever gender balanced EU Commission. Under the first ever female president of the EU Commission. So I think this makes make a difference. And an example from another area is women are 20% more likely to die if there is a car crash. Women are 50% higher risk of being severely injured in a car crash. Why? Because we are weaker? No. Because all the research is done on the male, the figures that they use when they simulate a crash is a male body. The safety belt are designed after male bodies. So if you do things with only one gender, then they will have a worse result out of that. And it's also the same in police, yeah, where you can see uniforms and arms and so on designed for men. I would like also to tell you one story about this big creativity. A Latvian mathematician, her name is Daina Taimina. Maybe you know about her? No? She's now retired, but she was a professor at the Cornell University. And back in the 70s, she did something that no one had done before. For over 150 years, mathematicians had known about the existence of hyperbolic space, but nobody has seen them. And nobody knows what they would look like. It's a combination between a flat surface and a sphere, you can say. Dinah, in 1977, she did something. She liked to crochet, needlework, I like knitting, so it's a bit the same. And she crocheted the mathematical formula of a hyperbolic space. And everybody was astonished. This is what it looks like. Now we understand. And this was, why I'm using this, because I'm a mathematician myself and I like knitting, but also that you need a creativity And if you leave half the population out, you will get less creativity. That is how it is. It's not because that we are better, but when we work having both gender in, we will achieve more. I think also that it's important that we can see also how we prioritize things. Of course, we don't know, but for example, when Russian invasion in Ukraine started, and I went to the borders in the different member states bordering Ukraine, saw all these women and children coming, afraid, freezing, scared, and a lot of all these heartwarming volunteers come up. I can take 2 people, I can take one adult and 2 children and things like that. And I also realized how easy it will be for somebody who would like to, a criminal that would like to traffic women and children in this situation. And we immediately started to counter this. From the Commission side, also with our anti-trafficking coordinators, Europol immediately set up a special task force and an action plan against that. And I must say that we have been successful. We have so far seen, with all these millions of vulnerable people coming into our member states, so far 25 confirmed cases of trafficking, which is quite low, I must say, compared to others. Is this because I am a woman? Was this because my Director General for DG Home was a woman? Was it because the head of Europol is a woman? We don't know. But maybe it's easier to see some of the threats differently when we have also women into the decision making. Yeah. So I'm going to say last about what I looked into the statistics, as I said. We have now 20% female police. We have 1 female head of national police. In March, they're going to be 2 in the European Union. Now in Sweden, in March also in the Netherlands. When we look around the ministers of interior, after the 27, there are 6 female ministers of interior. So we can see that we are quite far away from a gender balanced situation, and that will probably mean that we are less creative and good that we could be if we could have more of a gender balance. And we that have positions, we have power. And I think we are also obliged to use our power to help others. And that's why I really would like to praise you, Agne, because you are pioneering in bringing us together. This, I think, started in another area of policy was the foreign affairs, with Madeleine Albright was the secretary, US secretary, together with some other female ministers of foreign affairs. They started a network. And this is still ongoing, I think, with the female ministers of foreign affairs. And Madeleine Albright said also something important. There is a special place in hell for women who do not help each other. And I think that's true. It's not because we are better. It's not because we always agree. It's because that we realize that if I have power, and that's thanks to other women that's been before me, and I have an obligation to also pave the way for those coming after, to make sure that we will have a gender balanced situation also in law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, indeed, for very interesting speech and examples. And I'm sure that these women at the table will not go to this special place of hell, not go to hell in general, but not that space, definitely. And you were bringing very interesting examples, and I'm just reflecting some research, how world in general is structured through the lenses of men and even architecture. You mentioned the security precautions that they don't fit females, but also the infrastructure of the cities, the routes, the bus routes, the metro routes, not planned according the working hours of females, but planned according working hours of males. So I think that there is a lot of things to do, but I have question for you. You have this very horizontal view of what's happening in Europe, and I know that European Union is leading in the gender equality issues in the world, but I recall through the COVID-19 pandemics, there were lot of issues that pushed back even very well-developed countries several years back in terms of gender equality issues. Women were locked with their families. There were a lot of violence against women. They were not on the same level to contribute to the working environment because they had to take care of the children, to cook. So are we seeing that we have solved these issues? Is it better now? What did it say for us? Are we taking some actions in order to avoid something like that in the future? Thank you.
Of course, we are not solved things. That's why we are here. So, of course, there's still a lot of things to do, but I think it's also important to recognize good steps. And no, we are not going backwards. I can't see that. We are actually going forward. But of course, it's a little bit like that bumpy road, yes. For example, during the pandemic, we saw clearly that domestic violence was growing. And we also saw clearly that child sexual abuse online and the grooming of children, and that is both girls and boys, but it's more common that girls are being victims of child sexual abuse. So that we saw really big problems growing there. But we can counter this, and this commission has been and no commission before this one has put forward so many legislative proposals and strategies and initiatives when it comes to gender balance than this commission. Is it because we have a female president and a gender balance commission? I don't know, but maybe it makes sense. And for me, for example, I have put forward this very important legislation when it comes to fight the child sexual abuse, because this is really it's one girl out of 5 that falls victim of sexual violence, and very often with an online component. So the kind of proposals that you prioritize and how these are being perceived and worked with and welcomed in the member states, gender matters. So no, we are not going backwards, but it's a constant fight.
Thank you. Let's continue the fight and let's continue the conversations. And now I'd like to turn to the host of this event, who really showed the leadership in bringing all of us here for very important discussions. So I'd like to give the floor to Mrs. Agne Bilotaitė, who is the Minister of Interior of Lithuania, and you know her perfectly.
Good morning, dear Commissioner, ministers, directors, dear participants, and listeners. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to Vilnius. I want to thank all of you for being here today. This means a lot to me. The idea of having a discussion on gender balance in law enforcement has been on my mind since I became the Minister of Interior 3 years ago. It comes from my personal experience that I hope to share today. I would like to thank Commissioner Ylva Johansson for inspiring speech, so relevant to today's topic. And indeed, the role of women in politics and public life should be seen in a broader perspective. Women's safety, education, opportunities, access to healthcare, and equal pay for the same work, these are basic but crucial elements for women's prosperity. The benefits of women's involvement in the state governance are evident. When women are in charge, the states are safer, economies grow faster, and peace become long-lasting. And today, facing geopolitical tensions, military conflicts, terrorism, and migration challenges, the voice of women must be heard. Women's participation in politics has increased significantly, but some still believe that women are too weak to lead the riot control or battle, worse at driving, worse at shooting, and always driven on emotions. Stereotypes still exist. And then I countering the hybrid attack organized by Lukashenko, when welcoming Ukrainians fleeing from Putin's war, when addressing all the challenges, the most confusing question for me was, isn't too heavy for my female shoulders? I don't know how many times I was suggested to focus on raising children and cooking, how many times I have heard that women should not be responsible for public security and managing crises. But effective solutions were found and crises were overcome with knowledge, determination, analytical skills, international experience, and political will. And yet, women are still not trusted to make decisions. In the past 34 years of our independence, the Ministry of Interior was headed by only 2 women, 2 out of 20. But so far there was not a single woman leading any law enforcement authority. Since I was appointed as a Minister of Interior and I started working with law enforcement institutions, I have been wondering why so few women are in law enforcement leadership position. I was not satisfied with the answers that women just do not seek leadership position, they don't want to take bigger responsibility, or it is too difficult for women. I could not agree with that. And together with my team, I decided to examine the situation more deeply. In Lithuania, there are about 19,000 law enforcement officers. About 1/3 of them are women. I would like to highlight that over the past 2 decades, from 2004, when we joined the EU, the share of women in law enforcement has doubled. Today, in the EU, Lithuania occupies a leading position, together with Latvia and Sweden, in terms of the gender balance in the police. And by the way, these countries have the highest levels of trust in police. In Lithuania, the largest share of women is in the financial crime investigation service, 50%, and the police, 43%. The lowest in the public security service, Lithuanian Gendarmerie, 15%, and in the fire and rescue department, 8%. Survey shows that women's choices to work in law enforcement are primarily related to professional development and self-realization, while men's choices are more related to expectation on social benefits. Data shows that women are more motivated than men choosing their career in law enforcement, but then they hit the glass ceiling. And as a result, the share of women in top management position in Lithuania is less than 4%. And one of the reasons is gender-related challenges, gender stereotypes and discrimination, obstacles to professional development, difficulty in balancing work and personal life. So question is, what else could be done to empower, inspire, and encourage women in law enforcement? First, professional development and training. We have to identify and develop talents and skills of women officers. We could create a pool of potential women leaders and provide dedicated training. We could also establish mentorship programs and networks to support women in going for leadership positions. Perhaps a dedicated EU-level exchange program to promote women's empowerment could be created. Second, a fair promotion and motivation system. We have to ensure transparent promotion procedures and eliminate any preconditions on gender discrimination. Third, work-life and working arrangements. We have to implement flexible working arrangements and work-life balance. Four, psychological climate at the workplace. We have to cultivate a safe working place free for harassment, bullying, or mobbing. And we should focus on education and awareness raising on gender equality in law enforcement institutions. We should consider establishing an online platform for reporting cases of discrimination. Having said that, I would like to pass the floor for other participants, and I hope that this discussion will be a big step forward and will make big impact for future to change the situation.
Thank you, Minister, for sharing your thoughts and sharing some personal experience, which is also very important. Research shows that for women, sometimes it's very important to talk to each other and share the experiences, to have the feeling you are not alone. So you are doing this now. It's case in point situation and a wonderful example. And I very applaud the research that you've done in your institution. I think that that's also one important thing, just to show that it's not taking from somewhere and it's not based on the stereotypes again, but it's a pure data which shows inequality that has to be tackled. But I have a question for you, and so you've been in this position already for several years, and what is your feeling? So what are the advantages of having gender balanced institution where men and women are considered equal members, equally contribute to the decision making to law enforcement?
Well, I think that it's important to mention that it's no matter, women officer or man officer, we can do the same things. It's important. Second, I think that it is very big benefits from this opportunity that we have such big number in our institution of women, because they are more dedicated to work, they are more hardworking, I think so. They have good communication skills, they have good analytical skills, and I think we need to use the skills for daily life because it can help our institution, especially in this new modern world, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. You mentioned that sometimes we are being defined as very emotionally driven, but emotions sometimes are not bad, and they also contribute to the good decisions and better working environments.
I can mention that empathy is very
Yeah.
important in this position,
Exactly.
and women have these things.
Yeah, so it's very related to the emotions and emotional thinking. So that's very important. Thank you, Minister. Now I'd like to turn to another minister who comes from Finland, Madam Mari Rantanen. I hope I pronounce it in a right way. So a lot of been put on your shoulders at the moment, dealing with a major migration crisis, but a lot more as well. So what is the view from Finland?
Thank you very much. Actually, it's been very good speeches, and I can sign everything from your speeches. First of all, I would like to thank Agne for this event and it's very important. Like Commissioner said, you're a pioneer, and actually you are acting like you're teaching. You have been already supporting me also with my minister position, which is I'm very thankful. But dear colleagues, ladies in law enforcement, supporting women in their pursuit of careers in law enforcement is very important. Let me start with the overview from Finland. Police administration in Finland is male-dominated sector, but over the long term, the percentage of women has slowly increased. The amount of women among police staff and applicants to the Police University College has steadily increased. For example, 43% of applicants to the University College last year were women, and around 40% of those elected were too. Even so, women represent around a third of all police staff, so it's lower than in Lithuania. The majority of police chiefs have always been men in our country too. There are 3 female police chiefs currently, and this is under 9% of the total number. So it's very low, and we have done some same thinking what is going on. Why don't we have more women in chief positions? But in addition to positive developments for applicants, it's also very important that the work community itself feels that that equality is increasing. According to the staff's working life parameters, satisfaction with the level of equality in the Finnish police has improved at every survey point since 2008. And most importantly, the status of female police officers and the perception of their competence and professionalism has been strengthened among both female and male police officers. Gender does not define skills. That's the fact. Creating an inclusive environment means giving everyone equal opportunities in recruitment, training, and career development. It's important to focus on a merit-based system that values skills, experience, and dedication regardless of gender. Providing equal opportunities should be considered at all levels, starting with the equipment of the law enforcement authority. For example, in Finland, we have ensured that the grips of service weapons come in different sizes, that they are suitable for female police officers as well. We must constantly bear in mind the central role of the law enforcement in society. The core functions of security must not be compromised. It's the employer's responsibility to build the best outcome by harnessing the different competencies and skills for both men and women. And at the same time, the statistics shows that the most prominent area for improvement relates to the number of women police chief positions, where women are clearly underrepresented. Women's career progression is not fast as men in Finland. In fact, that's also noted to the equality plan of the Finnish police. One contributing factor to the slower career progression of women compared to men may be the family relations, but we really don't know is it or not. I also find it troublesome that internal police service have found that female police officers feels that the system favors men in many respects, particularly in terms of job evaluation and career development. In this respect, it's important to pay attention to ensuring that everyone is given equal opportunities to gain a wide range experience in different police tasks, for example, already during their training. And for the Finnish border guard, there is also lack of women, but we are slowly increasing women also to the border guards. But and there is also military positions require military service, which means that woman needs to do it voluntary if they want to have military positions. And there is also something to do because all of the leaders in our border guards are still men. And I have to say that I think that Finland is doing quite well, but this is the case we need to focus. Why on earth we don't have women in leading positions? Because we know that, like I said, gender doesn't tell anything about your skills, your capability to do even the very hard work. And I have two very good examples on my sides from Finland, very skilled, very wonderful ladies who have all the skills, and their career is nice, but they are still not the head of the police. But we are waiting for it, and I think that we have a responsibility to have good examples, because we all are examples for another woman's, and we have to show the way all the time. And actually, I think that we need to concentrate more the support of another woman to take them with us and lead the way to the head positions. And of course, we can always support also good candidates when it's coming to some position which we are looking for new staff. So there's a lot to do. At the moment, we are in Finland focusing a lot in security because of our environment, which is very hard. We are doing a lot of things in our borders, but also our police forces. We are increasing also police officers until 8,000, and I hope that when we are focusing on our security system, there is also open up interesting career for a woman too. And I think that my aim is to encourage women to apply these positions as well. And I think that as my point of view, what I have seen in my previous work, when I was working as a police officer and as a paramedic, I have to say that woman is not only emotions, women are barriers, really. So, and this time of the very hard time in Europe. We can see it from Ukraine until the whole Europe. So I was planning to say also these Madeleine Albright's words, but Ilva did it already. But it's obvious that we have to also respect ourselves. We can be very strong leaders, be very wise leaders, and take care of our security in our states. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Minister, for sharing Finnish experience. And it's still, interesting to hear that, a very egalitarian society as Finland is, where you consider that there are no gender-related stereotypes in particular areas which are masculine by nature, like law enforcement. There are still very big differences and a lot of work to do. And you yourself mentioned that you worked as a police officer, you had this career, and I'm just wondering, it is very often, in the research we discuss on gender equality, we discuss that sometimes in those masculine areas, women are forced to become like a man, those just warriors, not beautiful soul, change their essence to become a good professional in the masculine dominated areas. Do you feel that there was a requirement to become like a man and lose the femininity in this position? And did you encounter any gender-related stereotypes?
Well, I think that's a little bit hard question because I don't know the answer. I don't think that I ever felt that I need to be or become something else that I am as a woman. But of course, I think that maybe if I look the big picture, I think that many of the people who wants to work in this kind of professionals have some masculine small piece of masculinism in their mind, little bit dirty mind, and you will be fine in those professionals. But I don't think that it's. I never felt that I have to be something else that I am. But yeah, it's a hard question. I don't know the answer, but maybe somebody else can answer for that.
Thank you, Commissioner, definitely. Please.
Of course, I can't
Jensen.
really answer the question, but I think the situation is when you are the only woman in the room in different areas, there are two choices. Either you are the woman representing all women, and there's less room for yourself because you are like a representative of all women, or you try not to be too much the woman, being more to the man. I think that's part of the problem because when there is a gender balance, there is a room to have different kind of women, and you don't feel that you have to represent the whole, female part of the globe. So there are more different way of acting, and that is how men usually have this possibility to take different roles because they are usually in majority, and so there are room for different kind of men. But for women, when we are too few in a room, there are less different roles to play, so to say, and that could be something that restricts you.
Thank you, and that's a very good answer. I just have recollections as well of certain, aspects. Just one thing to follow up. There is this common joke about working as a female just to avoid all male-dominated panels when some women are invited to sit there because they are women. So, yeah, Minister.
Yeah, thank you. But I have to say that when I was working in fire department as a paramedic, and we have in my work team, I have one actually the first the firefighter woman in Finland who have ever graduated, and we united in our team. So we usually run the whole team. You know, they didn't even understand that we were doing the rules and the things. So I have good experience of working united with another woman in very male dominated sector.
Important to have camaraderie, to work together. Thank you, Minister. And now we have a series of video messages from all around Europe, and we'll start with the Minister of Interior, Institutional Reform and Democratic Renewal from Belgium, Madam Annelies Verlinden.
A very good morning to all of you in Vilnius. I was supposed to be there with you, and indeed I was very much looking forward to exchanging personal experiences, opinions and insights on the matter of diversity and equality in the field of law enforcement. However, there are pressing security matters that require my presence in Belgium here today. But I really wanted to share my views on this topic that is so important to me, both personally and as the Belgian Minister of Internal Affairs. I'm often asked what it's like to be a female politician, but actually I never really focus on the fact that I'm a woman. Authenticity is much more important to me, and I was given this opportunity and I seized it. I was asked to be a minister because of my political and social engagement, because I'm goal-oriented and I want to make a difference. And this position is a great opportunity to do so. Yet, I do believe there is something like female strength. Women can bring a different dynamic to the organization. With empathy, trust, and an open dialogue, they often can create connections where a more masculine style of leadership counts. These characteristics that can also apply to men are often undervalued in a predominantly male organization, such as the security sector. It's up to all of us, women and men alike, to help create a cultural shift in our field of law enforcement that welcomes, values, and encourages these characteristics. Let's look at some numbers. In Belgium, the integrated police today counts 503 chief superintendents, including 84 women, which is barely 16.6%. Only 23% of the superintendents and chief inspectors are women. In contrast, at the non-operational staff level A, a striking 69% are women. The coordination committee of the integrated police has 1 woman out of 8 members. The permanent committee for local police has 1 woman out of 19 members, and out of 27 regional directors, there are 4 female directors. Only rarely do women break the glass ceiling to reach a position of power, and when they do, it's mainly in the smaller police zones. But there is progress. Overall, we can conclude that Belgium's statistics are certainly not beyond average. They align with the European and global average. However, as mentioned, the number of women in executive or leadership roles, such as directors or mandate holders, is not very high. Generally, women are underrepresented in management committees or in key positions. Last year, in my home country, I gave a guest lecture to criminology students. 70 to 80% of these students were female, and a majority were considering a career in law enforcement. So it's nonsense to say that the security world is inherently a man's world today. Today it even attracts more women, but in practice, you see that women have a much harder time advancing to leadership positions. When it comes to power and leadership, the police world remains a real man's world. I do sincerely hope that more role models, like our very own female National Drugs Commissioner and our 3 female liaison officers in Morocco, Brazil, and Albania, will emerge. Actually, no less than 25% of all our liaison officers is female. Hopefully, with the help of these role models, we can, once and for all, sweep away the current cliches about women in the security world and make way for more diversity and more inclusion. Therefore, I'm very pleased with an organization like Womenpol, a Belgian network of police women. The network's informative and coordinating role serves mainly 3 objectives: increasing women's presence in the police force, facilitating smoother integration, and ensuring equal rights and opportunities for women throughout their careers. The key to achieving these goals lies in the exchange of knowledge and experience among police women across different Belgian police forces and with their European counterparts. I have met with the representatives of this organization a couple of times. During these meetings, they have expressed some consistent concerns. Their main issues include the need for a cultural shift to embrace innovation, lifelong learning, and diversity. They highlight ongoing problems with the treatment of female police officers and the lack of modern personnel management knowledge. They call all for a gender balance in decision-making bodies, criticizing the current All Boys network and advocating for inclusive, informal advice from a broader range of stakeholders, including themselves, and that for a more externally oriented partnership approach. So, although there is definitely an evolution underway, the road ahead is still long. We still have some ground to cover before we can say that the world of law enforcement is as diverse and gender inclusive as it should be. In recent years, our focus has rightly and significantly shifted from solely gender equality to encompassing diversity as a whole. The Charter for Diversity and Equal Opportunities, for example, that we signed and that we applied in the Belgian police, will soon be replaced by another charter. In this new charter, the focus will be on diversity as a whole, aiming at the integration of other minority groups, from the disabled to LGBTQIA+. Today, only 30% of events have gender-balanced panels. Yet a gender-balanced panel leads to a more open debate, and that is why we have signed a specific charter to give more attention to such inclusive panels and to promote their adoption. I want to conclude by emphasizing that a person's background, let alone their gender, should never matter. As with many things in life, everything hinges on trust. I strongly believe that when you give people trust, they inherently want to show their best selves. And this applies, in my opinion, also to working with employees, colleagues, competitors, third parties, or people of the opposite sex. So, despite the positive changes in the official narrative and formal commitments, we cannot afford to rest on our laurels. Instead, we must continue to push forward vigorously, and I'm convinced that together we can bring about a sustainable change. Thank you for your attention, and hopefully I will meet you all in person some other time at another occasion. See you.
Big thanks goes to the Minister of Interior of Belgium. And now we're moving up north to Iceland. Minister of Justice of Iceland, Madam Gudrun Hafsteinsdóttir.
Dear Commissioner, Directors, Ministers, distinguished colleagues, I want to thank you for the opportunity to address the conference. I sincerely hope that you will have an honest and open conversation about the role of women and gender balance in law enforcement authorities. This topic is truly close to my heart as Iceland has taken broad steps towards gender inclusiveness within law enforcement. In February 2023, 1 in every 4 higher educated active police officers was a woman, and 1 in 3 of active police officers. For comparison, women made up 8% of the police force in the year 2000. The National Commissioner for the Icelandic Police is a woman. The Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police is a woman, and the Director of Public Prosecution also. Various efforts have been made in recent years to reduce the likelihood of violence and harassment within the police. Efforts have been made to measure work culture holistically, including sexual or gender-based harassment among all police personnel. The police have worked closely with experts to counter gender-based discrimination, especially bullying and harassment in the workplace. We have tried to ensure that the entrance exam to the Police Special Task Force does not favor men. All complaints concerning sexual or gender-based harassment are submitted to a professional board established under the National Commissioner of the Police. If an offense has been committed, it's submitted to the district prosecutor. The professional board was established following research on the police work culture in 2013. Today, a decade later, we publish the results of a new research into police work culture. The main findings are that the Icelandic police force is still a gender-divided workplace, and there are no signs of change in the coming years unless we take special action. Although the percentage of women within the police has been increasing in recent years, more women than men are leaving the police force early. Women are more likely to leave the force on their own initiative, but men are more likely to leave due to age. Inappropriate behavior at work, such as bullying, gender-based harassment, and sexual harassment, is a gender-related problem within the police. Women are more likely to be exposed to this in the workplace or in relation to the work. 1 in every 5 female police employees said that they had been subjected to bullying or harassment at work. In conclusion, it's evident that while significant strides have been made towards gender inclusivity, challenges persist. The data underscores the importance of continued efforts to address gender-based issues within the police force. It's heartening to witness the commitment demonstrated by our leadership and the action taken to promote equality. As we navigate the path forward, let us remain steadfast in our dedication to foster a work environment that is truly inclusive and free from gender-based discrimination, bullying, and harassment. Together, through collective action and ongoing dialogue, we can build a law enforcement community that reflects the principles of equality and respect for all. I regret that I was not able to attend in person today because I truly believe that an event like this is vital to strengthen the bond between women in law enforcement. I'm also quite sure that all women, no matter where we work, are facing the same obstructions, and by working together, we will be stronger and in a better position to make the police force a better workplace for us all. Thank you. I thank you for your attention and your commitment.
Big thanks to the Minister of Justice of Iceland. And now we'll break the chain of video messages and we'll come back to the audience. And it's my great pleasure to invite to the floor Madam Montserrat Marin Lopez, who is the Executive Director of European Union Agency for Law Enforcement Training. Training definitely is key in this particular matter.
Thank you so much, dear Commissioner, dear Ministry of Internal Affairs, dear Ministers, colleagues. I have a debate, internal debate, because I have a lot of papers here on my dual role as a Executive Director and also a Commissioner from the National Spanish Police. I carry out two investigations about this particular topic. It was, both of them were about perception. It's only a paper that in blue are the perception of men, law enforcement officers, and the perception of women. If you want to pass, it's only how radically the perception are different. First of all, my first question to all of us, the reflection is, men has never put under scrutiny. Why women are putting under scrutiny if we are capable to do this or that? Men has accepted they have all the capabilities, they have all the skills, we know that. Why women have to prove something? First reflection. On the other hand, law enforcement reflect deeply rooted cliches, and it's because of the culture. The culture has been constructed regarding male sim. So it was a famous paragraph that said that women care and men lead. So we have to change this conception about leadership. One thing is the integration of women at the police. The incorporation is one thing, but the integration, and it's one question you allocated on the dear Ministry of Interior of Finland. This is called tokenism, and this is what the Commissioner was saying. What is the traits? What is the profile? Why I don't bring my whole personality to the workplace? So we are police in capitals women, or we are police and women in capital. I don't need to show male profile. I'm a woman. So one question is about the capabilities. And at the law enforcement, probably we are more prone to consensus, to communication skills, but we have been associated only with administrative tasks. And men consider that is because we don't want to. Why? I want to be a manager, but I don't want to be a manager in a male environment. Why? Because police culture is associated with availability to travel, long hours at the office, and networking. And usually women, because of our education, social, and duality between work and family, we are not able to go to the bar after long hours. So we are not present in the bars, at the coffee breaks, when at the dinner, relaxed dinner, they are full of men that are dealing with the business, and we are out of this network. So the networking is essential, the mentoring is essential. On the other hand, statistics reflects that there is not correlation between the entry of women at the police forces and their level of representation. So some men says, no, it's because you are very new at the police. No, there is not a positive correlation regarding this. On the other hand, my experience is based on objective data. I'm not speaking subject to this because of this investigation I carry out. On the other hand, we have non-linear careers. Why? Because most women are mothers too. So we interrupt their career and then we have to reintroduce our business. So what happened with us? That we are the perfect second level managers. Our career is more horizontal than vertical. We have to achieve managerial positions, but not you are a very nice as administrative, as analyst, or more oriented to victims, but you are not operational. Because police establish a hierarchy of relevance. Operational is the first, and then is education, administrative tax, victims-oriented community policy. Usually, there are stereotypes that we are more capable with victims, with gender balance, gender issues, as analysts on international units, but it's not true. Another question also is probably the difference among soft skills. What does it mean, soft skills? We are associated to soft skills. Why? Because we are not aggressive. We are direct, we tend to consensus, to communicate, to build in teams. And when we show direct approaches, we are hysterical. When a man shows this direct approach, he's strong. So what I think as recommendation, one thing that is important is we don't have complete update data. I try to find out the data by Eurostat, and there were global data. Global data is an average. I don't know how many managers are really at the police. I cannot establish why there are not more women. We have to establish networking. We have to establish this mentoring program. Indeed, I took note about this, and CIPOL will promote a specific mentoring and exchange program with women leaders. So I think it's also important to reflect this. And, well, we have to reduce the biases and the stereotypes. Our approach to work is different than men. But one thing that has been not said here, we need men in our strategy. We can discuss here with 100 women, but inclusion is that men has to be aware of the problems we are facing on a daily basis, how we feel. When, as the commissioner has said, when a woman, and a single woman is with men, they have to understand what your feelings are. There's sometimes the situation of isolation, self-esteem, they are provoking the typical jokes. This paternalism that sometimes establish that you are very young. No, I'm very young, but I'm the minister or I'm the commissioner. Nothing happened. So, absolutely agree with all the intervention that we have to establish proper selection processes, proper protocols. We have to train the people who are on the selection panel. We have to be present at the decision-making processes, because if not, we don't have visibility at all. And minorities, the problem of minorities is that we don't have voice and visibility. So we have to improve our visibility too. And also, I think it has to be harmonized, the policies about equality, because some countries are implementing quotas, and sometimes we have a stigma in law enforcement that you will be a commissioner because you are a woman. No, it's not true. We are balanced the negative discrimination we have suffered in the past, because in the past, on equal merits, only men were promoted. Now we try to balance, so we have to have a more uniform and homogeneous policies on gender equality and not depend on the national priorities at the police forces, I think. And also conciliation measures has to be the same for men and women, because the conciliation measures were the perfect excuse to say that women is at home and men is. So now, with this idea of grant non-transferable parental leave, can promote a change of mindset for men to take care also, and to reduce this idea that I will be discriminated because I will be out because of pregnancies during 1 year or 1 year and a half. And for the agencies, I think it will be more prone to hire men or women with the same rights. Particularly at CIPOL, I'm very proud because I think, of course, we are related to training and education is associated with women, but we have 55% of women at CIPOL. I'm very proud of this. Also in the managerial position, we have 50% of managers, so I'm very proud. But what is most important is that we have approximately 22% of women participation in our activities, including non-EU countries. And for us, I think we can be proud to promote also this participation in non-European countries, because CIPOL has to be a mirror. What we have to avoid is this illusion of equality. If you see this paper, men think that women are well represented, also in managerial position. This is the common perception. We have to show to them that is not true. But I think we have to include men into all the strategies, because without the half of the population, we cannot do nothing. We can discuss, but they have to be aware of what is happening about discrimination, about harassment, about inappropriate behaviors with women, typical jokes, this strong culture and cliches associated with women, also at the police organization. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate this invitation. And thank you for giving us voice also in this dual agency and as a commissioner, as a law enforcement. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Lopez, indeed for very profound insights. And yeah, I have a question for you as well. There are two approaches how to include more women in every profession and every workspace, but in particular in those masculine dominated spaces. So one approach is just add and stir, quotas, more women. And another approach is don't count women, make female voice count. It's not about the quotas, but it's about education and raising up women to become leaders. And I'm just wondering, in your particular work, you are very much concentrating on education. How important is it, and what CIPOL can do more to educate the women to become leaders in law enforcement?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question. They are very profound too. I think CIPOL is, yes, entitled to be the mirror for reducing biases and stereotypes. So we have to train people in order to reduce this kind of biases and stereotypes first, and we have to promote also skills for leaderships. We have to put together the gaps that women have on leadership skills and men have also the gaps that men, and to create effective leadership that bring up together men and women capabilities after a real analysis. What are the strengths of men and what are the strengths of women? So dual work. Reduce the stereotypes and biases, create awareness, and also to build a concept of leadership without any reference to gender, but merits and profile, professional profile.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we move to the last video message. And let me welcome Catherine de Boll, who is Executive Director of Europol.
Dear leaders, distinguished ministers, commissioner, heads of agency, respected colleagues, I regret that I cannot be with you in person for this important conference on women in law enforcement. As a woman and head of Europol, this is a topic close to my heart. I am grateful that I can quickly share some of my experiences and my view of the matter. But I will be brief, and I am honored to say that my capable and esteemed colleague is with you today, Mrs. Julia Vietma, head of Europol's Operational and Analysis Center. Before I assumed the role of Europol Executive Director, Julia already made history at Europol as the first woman at the rank of head of department. I am proud to think that this event is full of trailblazers. It shows that leadership can take diverse forms and that women have a key role to play in contributing to the safety of our society. As women leaders, we hold a unique position in driving change. We have a responsibility to ensure, first, that our staff benefits from an inclusive workspace. Second, that we also serve as flag bearers from the values of diversity and inclusion in the law enforcement community and beyond. At Europol, I am proud to say that creating an inclusive workspace, for instance by ensuring gender-inclusive recruitment procedures, has been a priority from the start of my tenure. This priority comes from a very personal experience. Before becoming Europol Executive Director, I was Commissioner General for the Federal Police in Belgium, after many steps in the Belgian police, including as police chief of my local police force in Ninove. For context, when I was interviewing for that position, I already had 3 sons. In the interview, a member of the recruitment panel asked the mayor of the city in front of me whether he would risk hiring me since I could become pregnant again. Fortunately, the mayor did not share the same concern and I was offered the position. This experience is unfortunately not unique, but it illustrates 3 key points I would like to leave with you today. First, we need to support and mentor colleagues that may have leadership qualities, while also be victims of potential prejudices. These can be based on gender, but also differences in race, sexual orientation, or any other aspect. With this awareness, we can create a mentoring environment based on a culture of empowerment and inclusivity. Second, we should not forget the role of men when developing women leadership initiatives. I know I would not be where I am today without the mentorship and support of men who believed in me at a time when women leaders were not a common sight. And finally, we must remember to create the conditions and opportunities for women to reach leadership positions in a field that is still male-dominated. Beyond recruitment, this could mean embracing flexible working arrangement, creating mentorship opportunities, and immediately addressing discriminatory or harassing behavior. For this, I am proud that since 2022, Europol has a diversity and inclusion strategy, which Julia will tell you more about in a moment. Our second shared responsibility, distinguished colleagues, is to serve as flag bearers for the values of diversity and inclusion in the law enforcement community and beyond. What do I mean by this? Essentially, we should actively promote the principles of diversity and inclusion outside the circles that already support them and show how they are relevant to other common security-related topics. One topic of particular interest in my view is law enforcement innovation. The digital era, with the advent of AI and other innovative tools, opens new frontiers for law enforcement, but it also sheds a renewed light on the question of gender balance and diversity within leadership. With new technologies comes new responsibilities, and one thing is just as true in the digital era. Representation matters. We need to see more minorities and women in key roles. This includes in fields like technology development, cybersecurity, and research. Today, I reaffirm my commitment to championing these values, recognizing that they are fundamental to the fabric of justice and equality. I take the opportunity of this moment to announce that next month, on March the 7th, Europol will host a Diversity Day on this very topic, shaping law enforcement innovation for a more inclusive future. I wanted to make this announcement myself. Invitations will follow soon, and I hope your countries and agencies will also take part in this important discussion. This is the moment for us to redefine the landscape of leadership by putting diversity and inclusion at the forefront. We can do this together by addressing the barriers or prejudices that exist that make it harder for women to rise through the ranks. Investing in the successes of our colleague through mentorship and other measures, and recognizing the important contributions of both men and women in creating a more inclusive environment. This event itself is a step in this direction. I am glad that such an impressive number of women leaders in the field of justice and home affairs are having these important conversations. I want to conclude by extending my congratulations to the Minister of Interior of Lithuania, Mrs. Agnė Bilotaitė, for this notable tour de force. I wish you all fruitful discussions and exchanges. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, for bringing an interesting angle. It's innovation and technologies and what kind of challenges and opportunities it creates for gender equalities. Of course, it comes with a lot of challenges, but for instance, the gender inequality and harassment towards females is very visible and viable on the social media. And if you look at social media, follow the trends, it's increasing. So that's a big challenge, but also it creates some window of opportunities for female to work with these innovations. And it was already announced in the speech, and it is my pleasure to give the floor to Julia Wiedma, who is head of the Operation and Analysis Center in Europol.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Minister, for this kind invitation. When I look back to when I started in the Spanish National Police 33 years ago, I see that the women are increasingly finding their place in the law enforcement. Slowly but continuously, the number of increasing, and we see a little more women in leadership positions. So progress has been made, but as already shared by other speakers before me, the gender parity is not still there, and we have still to break a lot of stereotypes and prejudice on the ability of women to lead in this specific area. Mentioned also by the moderator, the defense and police sector, they are the more stereotype areas where there is still a lot of misconception. What is modern police and what is to be today a leader? So we are not talking about a muscle policeman running after a thief, because it's not anymore the police like that. In today's world, policing is more about intelligence, about analysis, and about cooperation. And these are areas where the women, we excel. But also leadership is about commitment, responsibility, and more important, people understanding. And the women that has these qualities, this strength, they are making excellent leaders. I agree with you that the higher we go in the level of responsibility, less women we see. And this has nothing to do with the ability of women to lead in the law enforcement. It's mainly the structural conditions are not always there to promote women to these leadership positions. As mentioned by Catherine in her own experience, there are a lot of still young women that they are not given the chances to show that they can be good leaders, and simply because they cannot access to these positions. So the problems are structural, but the structure can be changed. You know a little what is the role of Europol. We are already facilitating information exchange because we have a very secure and extensive databases. We are also providing support to the investigation in the member state by deploying people. We have a lot of technical tools, digital tools. So we are very demanding in terms of services, and in the heart of all this success, this is a very key area, is the incredible diversity of the staff that we have at Europol. We are talking about the combination of experts from EU and non-EU countries, men and women with different languages, with experience, and with different professional backgrounds. Today, further to the executive director and myself, Europol, for example, has the leader of the Counterterrorist Center, just recently appointed, Anna Sorber from Sweden, and also we have very competent head of unit. If we talk about figures, we are not doing so well as the Lithuanian police. We are around, in total in the staff of Europol, 34%, 17% in senior analyst and senior specialist positions, and now for the management of Europol, so we consider head of department of above, we are already 22%. So I was the only one in 2016 when I arrived to Europol. Now we are 8 of us already part of the Europol management. As Agency of Law Enforcement Cooperation in Europe, we have really a duty to be the example within the law enforcement community. And we need to show, as mentioned by the director, very innovative thinking on how we can really adapt the work environment to facilitate the role of women. She mentioned in her video about our experience in diversity and inclusion. And we really approach this topic from a very wide perspective. But a particular focus, of course, is about gender discrimination. As he mentioned, since 2012, we have integrated the gender equality policies within the organization. And how we do practically? Well, really, we try to stimulate this positive change. We start with ourselves, with our rules, our structure. We have already the aim to elevate diversity and inclusion to a corporate value of Europol, at Europol. As mentioned by the director, we have integrated very clear policies within our recruitment procedures. We established a diversity and inclusion advisory group that initiated these diversity days at Europol already in 2019, and we are going to host, as mentioned by the director, the next one now in March. Another important step has been to establish the diversity and inclusion strategy in 2022 and the implementation plan in 2023. So now we have, even in the structure of Europol, there is a team under the leadership of Human Resources Department that is focused on diversity and inclusion. So we have, in one side, diversity and inclusion as a corporate value, but in the other side, we have physically structures within Europol that reflect the commitment of Europol in this matter. We also have, in terms of training and education, as already mentioned by Montse, it's important that we are offering now more diversity and inclusion training to our managers and our staff. And even if our appraisals, we have specific goals for managers on targeting diversity and inclusion. So we are accountable what we are doing as a manager, but also as an organization. I don't want to extend too much, but I would like to conclude to say that we really believe that we truly serve the needs of people, the police forces, by mirroring the diversity of their societies. So diversity is critical in our mission. Structural inequalities still often prevent women to develop professionally and reach these top positions. And we are not talking only about women, we are talking about, as we mentioned before, diversity, other groups like people with disabilities or religious-based discrimination. But the structures can and must be changed if there is a need for that. Gender balance is important,
but modern police needs to focus on diversity and, even more important, inclusion. Diversity is a fact. Either we like or not, it's there. But inclusion is a corporate conscious choice. It's about changing the work environment to make sure that everyone can reach their goals and can contribute to the objective of the organization. Inclusion is not only the right choice or the moral choice, it's the smart choice to do for an organization. As leaders, we have to create these conditions, allowing our staff, whether men or women, to develop their full potential and reach their career goals. It means also to encourage our female colleagues to take the steps necessary to advance in their career, and making sure that our internal policies and procedures, they also permit them to reach this goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And I still have a question for you, because you brought yet different angle to our discussion, is the angle of the gender equality of the law enforcement institution at the international organization. And well, very often the gender-related stereotypes comes from our traditions, our national thinking. And you work at the international organization where the diversity is huge, so everyone brings their own stereotypes. How this angle affects your work, and how do you fight against that?
Well, it's true, as I mentioned, that we try to really embed the diversity and inclusion values in their daily work. And yesterday we were discussing about, for example, the example of the recruitment processes. What we see, and this is a personal experience because I participate in many selection procedure panels at Europol, we have very few female candidates, and even less when we are talking about senior management positions. There is in one side, because when you work in an international organization, normally means that you need to leave your country behind when you apply for an international position. So sometimes culturally it's more difficult for women because we are more attached to the family values to take, leave behind your kids and your husband and go somewhere to work. But I think that is also something that we see in the applications that we receive from female candidates, is that at national level, they don't have the opportunities to fit the requirements that they are required for the position. I'll give you an example. For a senior management position, we are requesting a minimum head of unit level, request a minimum of 5 years of management experience. If you're not given this possibility at national level to have this 5 years experience, you will be never able to apply for a position at Europol, for example, as head of unit. Similar with the diversity of the expertise. For some specific positions, we require specific expertise in the cyber area, for example, or in trafficking in human beings. If you are not given this possibility at national level, you will never reach the possibility to apply. So sometimes in the policies, when we are selected or shortlisting the candidates, we need to have in mind that, and to say, okay, maybe instead of selecting only 6 candidates shortlisted, I'm going to shortlist 10, and I'm really widening the possibility to give this opportunity to our female colleagues, candidates, to showcase that they are also able to apply for this kind of positions, even if they are not 100% fitting the strict criteria that we are putting. So this flexibility also in the way how we shortlist potential candidates, when you are in the selection process, everybody is the same. You need to really perform and to demonstrate that you are the best in the selection procedure to get the position. But in the moment that we are shortlisting, this kind of conditions to say we need to be maybe more flexible, widen a little our requirements to permit more diversity in the candidates that we will interview. At the end of the day, will be the performance in the recruitment procedure, but you are giving the opportunity to more women to pass through this selection procedure. So this is one example how I mentioned already in the speech, how important it is to really embed this thinking in the values of an organization, but also in the structures of the organization. There is nothing wrong to have an advisory group on diversity and inclusion in an organization. It's not a shame, it's the opposite. It's an opportunity that we are really strengthening the role of diversity and the values of diversity within your own agency.
Thank you very much indeed. It's very important to change the mindset, because if you arrive with the same mindset, you cannot expect the change in January. Thank you, thank you. And now we move to our last speaker of this panel. And we are very happy in Lithuania to host the European Institute for Gender Equality. And I think that it was a very big boost for Lithuania to start discussing, to continue discussing the gender-related issues. And I know that your institute is making a great impact for the situation here. So, Madam Carlean Schill, or Shell, I hope that I pronounce in the right way. I would like to ask you to give us this bird's view. So what do you see? Because obviously you have a lot of data on your hands and you see the trends. So what do the trends tell?
Thank you. Dear Commissioner, dear ministers, and dear colleagues. Indeed, it's an honor to be here, and I would first like to thank the dear Lithuanian Minister of the Interior for inviting us to this important conference, as well as for the lovely dinner we had yesterday, and which already offered an opportunity to speak about the topic of today. The other week, it was International Day of Women in Multilateralism. And it was a day to actively advocate for increasing the representation of women in key decision-making positions and recognize the essential role that women play in the promotion of human rights, peace, and sustainable development within the multilateral system. And my agency contributed to a cascade of social media commentary by bringing indeed in IGES evidence on gender and security, launched in June last year, ahead of Vilnius hosting the NATO summit in July. This was a very timely moment to look down the corridors of power and get a sense of the state of gender equality in this area. And I'm sure that the findings, I've listened to all of you, they won't take you by surprise, but they still will command your attention. Only 1 in 5 NATO Council representatives are women. Or in other words, 4 in 5 NATO Council representatives are men. So flipping the numbers around has quite an impact, doesn't it? Also, we found that women hold only 1 in 5 leadership positions amongst civilian staff at NATO. And on the side of United Nations peacekeeping operations, women account for only 11% of commanders. Now, this is just a small snapshot. Beyond these data points, our evidence found that gender equality is simply absent when looking at EU governments, EU institutions, and agencies in the areas of defense, migrant, and border control. Similarly, on the ground, there is a gender recruitment gap in the armed forces in member states that are either members or partner nations of NATO. Women account for less than 1 in 5 full-time members of the armed forces. So we can ask ourselves, why is this the case and where are the women? Well, frankly speaking, we know where they are, because they are in lower ranking roles. The higher the rank, the less women we see. And how did this become our reality? And this is really essential to speak about. Monse already touched upon this, because when you think about what someone who works in the security area looks like, I'm sure that for the majority of citizens, the default picture in their mind is that of a man. Another question I could raise, because I use it very often in my own country, I'm from the Netherlands. If you say the word surgeon, the majority of people will see a man in front of them. Because as a result of gender stereotypes, we are all on some level hardwired to see women in more caring, nurturing roles and men in authoritative and leadership roles. And I wouldn't even call it gender stereotypes, I would really call it implicit or unconscious bias. And maybe I can share my thoughts about this with you as well, because being the director of this agency working on gender equality, people always think that I'm not biased, but I am. I'm really biased because of my upbringing. And as an agency, 3 years ago, we went through a training on unconscious bias. And you could ask yourself, but why on earth are they doing this? Because it's the agency that is having all these experts on gender equality. I would invite you to do a test that Harvard University has developed on unconscious bias. And I did it myself. And to my shock and horror, I found out that even in the area of gender equality, I am still very biased, despite having worked in this area since 2002. And it has partly to do, I'm convinced, with my upbringing. I was born in the 60s. So I have been raised in a very male society. I come from a very traditional family. So my father was the breadwinner and my mother was doing the household and raising the children. And throughout my upbringing, this is the picture I have seen. And it's so difficult to get rid of this. So with everything we have discussed so far, I think an important step that really every organization should take is, let's look at our own internal unconscious bias. Because if we don't know how we are thinking, we can't solve the issue. And another thing that I hear often is that people ask me, but why does it even matter that we have gender equality? Why should we make this a priority to see more women in leadership roles? Does it really have an impact on security policies? So what is the issue? And to answer these questions, it's really worth taking a broader lens view and a step back for context. Because we have to understand that women and men and girls and boys experience conflict, insecurity, and threats differently. Women and children face displacement from their homes, while men may often be forced to fight in conflict, risking their lives, as we currently see in Ukraine. Women and girls who are fleeing the war are at a greater risk of conflict-related sexual violence. Did you know that in times of peace, approximately 35% of women worldwide experience gender-based violence, but in times of crisis, this number swells to an alarming 70%, according to United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. My agency is soon going to publish a report on how women fleeing the war in Ukraine can access sexual and reproductive healthcare services in the European Union under the Temporary Protection Directive. It's important to share this information. Looking at these figures, this is why we can't leave women on the sidelines of decision-making in the development of policy responses. The diversity of perspective brings added value to conflict prevention, peace, and social resilience. More measures need to be put in place to increase gender balance in leadership in law enforcement and related sectors. Europe will be stronger and more resilient when we achieve this. To conclude with some promising facts to take us forward. From the same evidence my agency collected, we do in fact see greater gender balance when it comes to principal officers in NATO. And within the European Commission, top roles in security and defense are more evenly split between women and men. The Director General for Migration and Home Affairs is a woman, and the current EU anti-traffic coordinator is also a woman. So you see, I do feel a sense of hope that with women who are visible at the top, it will lead to a cascade of change across more law enforcement structures and positions. it's not that progress doesn't happen, but it's so incredibly slow. The EU can be proud of having a robust gender equality strategy. The Commission, as part of a union of equalities, has placed equality at the core of its agenda, and with ongoing efforts to turn commitment into action, I'm convinced that we will see the change that we need. And with that, I want to thank you, and thank you for bringing this important issue to the table. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Madam Skeller, for this very horizontal bird's view picture in general, what's happening in the world in the masculine-dominated areas. And I know that you have a very extensive career as a public servant as well over the many years. And I'm just wondering, throughout these years, you should have come upon certain examples. What are the best ways? What is working, trying to boost female participation in the male-dominated professions?
Yes, thank you for this question. And actually, you know, I could talk for hours about this, but let's not do that. First of all, I would like to come back to what I mentioned before. It's the unconscious bias and the gender stereotypes. Here I see a parallel, for example, with a sector, the STEM sector, so that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, where we see the same figures, and they're quite persistent. So to give you some examples, some data from our latest Gender Equality Index from last year, if you look at the member states of the European Union, only 19% of students in ICT are female, and 27% of students in engineering, manufacturing, and construction are women. I think it has partly to do with the perceptions of women about these sectors, and vice versa, also the perception about women in these sectors. And I have seen examples, and it's very interesting, of member states who organized the so-called Girls' Days. So girls were invited, from schools were invited to go and visit these sectors and to be on the spot and to participate actually in the work. Germany, for example, is a country that has done this for years. And what happened in these girls' days, that both the girls saw, okay, it's not so complicated. I can do this, and I actually love it. But also for the people working in those sectors and talking to these young women and girls, they actually saw the potential. And so that's one example that I could give. It's unfortunate that it's not also done for boys. Boys, I mean, we know that, for example, the care sector, it's female dominated. It would be great if member states would also organize so-called boys' days to visit those female dominated sectors. Maybe I can give you an interesting example that I wasn't aware about. It's in my own country, but my colleagues told me yesterday. An example from the aerospace engineering faculty at the Technical University in Delft, one of our very technical universities in the Netherlands. And for years they have been trying to engage more women students in their faculty. So what did they do? They changed their, let's say, their text in vacancies to make it more attractive for women. They really thought about how to recruit women, but still they saw that the amount of women students, it was lagging behind. So they have now recently published a quota, and there was also a question about quota. Do we feel that they have an added value? So they have recently established a quota of 30% out of 440 places reserved for women. And before they had a let's say, a goal of having 20% female students. And they have now set a quota. Personally, I have very long been of the opinion that we shouldn't have quota because it should go automatically, but it doesn't. It simply doesn't. And we know from our research that those 11 member states that so far have adopted legislative quotas applicable to the list of candidates for national elections, they have actually achieved at least 30% of women in their parliaments. So do I like quota? Maybe not per se, but if it's needed, we should have them, and we see that it works. And let me stress also the quota as alone. That's not, of course, it's relevant, but it's the thinking behind it. Yeah, we know from our research that even in an organization, the leadership is not really committed to diversity and gender equality. If staff perceive that it's only lip service, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And that's another thing. If organizations have all these beautiful strategies, but if internally people are not convinced that it's needed, you can have quotas, you can have strategies, you can have objectives. It won't work. People won't move if they don't see the added value. So the leadership should really be committed and not say it once, but say it all the time. The leadership should not accept that in conferences there's these all-male panels. They simply should say it's unacceptable. And they should practice what they preach. So this is a few examples that I would like to give here. And yeah, happy to speak during the coffee break about all the other evidence we have gathered. Again, I could speak for hours. For me, it comes down to the real wish to make a change in your organization. And I have been a policy advisor in my previous life. I can tell you that when I worked on policies, my main goal was to develop the best policies for the citizens in the Netherlands, which means that I had to take into account the realities of men and women, boys and girls in my country. If we don't develop the best policies for our citizens. We don't develop the best projects for the people we care about. And maybe I can leave it to that. And I shared some examples from my own experience. It's a serious matter. Maybe one last word, because when you work in gender equality, people usually don't like when you speak about the economy. But gender equality, and I'm now quoting someone who spoke during, I think it was in 1992, during the US presidential campaign, someone said, it's the economy, stupid. It is. Gender equality also contributes to our economies. And let me finish with that sentence. Many thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. And we have discussed such a number of different angles that I probably won't be able to reflect on our discussion in 5 minutes or 4 minutes. But let me conclude the discussion with several points. And I believe that everyone around the table share this hope and believe that situation is going to the better. Situation is changing for the better, is improving, and the commissioner also mentioned that the situation is improving also within the sector. But despite the growing numbers of female officers, civil servants in law enforcement institutions, there are still a number of challenges related to glass ceiling, gender-related stereotypes or unconscious biases, and these obstacles are preventing women to pursue their careers nationally or internationally. So it is very important, first of all, I guess, what we've learned today, to have very correct data. And we've shared a lot of data around this table, and I think it was very informative, because without data, again, you're producing and reproducing another stereotypes. Why they are so unhappy? Probably situation is not that bad, or maybe, they're just complaining. But if you have data, it's clear cut. So data is important, to collect data, to analyze it, to reflect on trends, strategies, and it was mentioned on a number of occasions that strategies and policies in the institutions to ensure gender equality are important, and all the institutions have to have, and those strategies have to be about skills and merits and professionalism of female, but also how to boost their leadership, how to include more women, and to trace the leadership potential and to boost this leadership potential. And it's not very easy. And then there are diverse ways. And of course, every institution, every person leading the institution has their own ways. But it has to come from the top management, from the top down, because otherwise it's not going to work. And from what I hear today from those very strong women, that role models are very important in various positions. So I think that we, all of us, are taking lessons learned from this discussion, that we also have a certain mission to promote, to preach what we believe by doing, by showing this leadership and helping other women not to burn in hell, to get up the leadership ladder. Mentorship programs were mentioned on a number of occasions, and I think that women don't go to bars and don't make acquaintances there, so they need some alternative spaces to talk to each other and to help each other to go through the certain difficult phases, but also to learn about the opportunities. And last but not least, what I took from our discussion is about the mindset change. And we have to make sure that the whole organization changes its mindset. So all male panels can be replaced by all female panels, but it doesn't work if these two panels do not talk to each other. So that's my recommendation for the next conference, if we're going to have it in Vilnius, to have more gender balance. Also on the table, to have more probably sustainable and long-lasting strategy. With this, I'd like to thank Minister of Interior of Lithuania, Agne Bilotaitė, who is our host, for making this conference happen, and all our speakers for very interesting stories and interesting insights that they've shared. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to invite the heads of the delegations for the family photo, and later on we'll have a big family photo for all the participants.
As you can see, moderators changed. I'm from Lithuania, from Klaipėda University, Gabrielė Burbulytė Tsiskarišvili. And once again, dear participants, distinguished guests, Minister, ladies, and several gentlemen, it is a great honor for me to be invited to moderate this conference about women empowerment. Considering that only several centuries ago, women were treated as the property of their husbands, fathers, brothers, or even sons. Considering that only 100 years ago, women did not yet have the right to vote in many countries, even those that called themselves democracies. Today, we are witnessing an incredible progression of the last few decades. This event, which brought together women working in law enforcement in different European countries, is a prime example. As we heard in the presentations in the first part of the conference, women's participation in public life has grown and continues to grow rapidly. However, we still see too many areas where women's participation is insufficient, where women's contribution is not valued, where women's voices are not heard, especially in decision-making area. There are even areas where women are seen as intruders. Nonetheless, there are lots of wonderful, inspiring, and encouraging examples as well. We count numbers as numbers are important, numbers do matter, but behind every statistical number, there is a living person, a living woman with her own experience, with her own story. And today we asked women in high positions in law enforcement to share their personal stories, because sharing is about caring. As the moderator of the first session pointed, Lithuania is celebrating 20 years of the EU membership. As the Prime Minister of Lithuania pointed, when we entered the European Union, we had quite many countries as role models, how to balance the gender issue in different areas of public policy. Today is our turn to share our experience, our stories, success stories, and thus encourage more women to take leadership. Therefore, thank you, first of all, Minister, for hosting this event. And right now, we are turning to storytelling, and our first story will be video message from Iceland. And we have a message from National Commissioner of the Icelandic Police, Ms. Sigrid Björg Gudjonsdottir.
Your Excellencies and colleagues, my name is Sigrid Björg Gudjonsdottir, and I have been the National Commissioner of the Icelandic Police since 2020. I would have wanted to meet all the impressive leaders gathered here and get inspired by you, but duty calls, and we have a very unstable situation near Grindavík, a small coastal town here in Iceland. We already had one eruption mid-January in the area, and we are preparing for another. I am, however, honored to participate. I have a long experience as a woman in law enforcement, but I started my leadership experience in 1996 as a tax commissioner in the west coast of Iceland, in a small fisherman's town, and I was only 27 years old. I had more death threats in my 4 years as a tax commissioner than as a police commissioner for over 20 years. Money does rule the world. I truly believed at the time that gender did not matter at all. Little did I know, gender matters, as we all know. Otherwise, you would not participate in this event. However, I have gotten many opportunities to be grateful for, and have been a police commissioner since 2002. I served in a small district, in a border district in Suðurnes, and as a commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. I became a national commissioner in 2020, and the first woman in some of the positions. My career so far has been eventful, and at times felt like an IKEA furniture test, but I am grateful for each day because it gives the opportunity to have an impact. Gender-based violence and equality have been my trademarks my whole career, among other issues like the battle against organized crime and civil protection. Equality and gender-based violence are not soft topics. They're hardcore topics. The police is a service organization, not a power organization. We need to listen to our clients and understand their situation. That can only be done with a diverse team that understands a diverse community. Lessons learned so far are that equality is a decision. It has to be powered by the top management. It does not happen by itself. Policy is not enough. There needs to be a decision, prioritization, strategy, implementation, measuring of impact, and follow-up. Outside review is necessary. Research and data are necessary. You need to rethink everything. There will be friction, hostility, backstabbing if you threaten the common understanding, and there is the inevitable backlash. And one of the lessons learned is that women in your field are not necessarily friendly, as the competition can be fierce. Iceland is #1 in the World Economic Forum Gender Gap Index and has been for many years. One of my ministers has said that it does not mean that we are the best in equality, but rather that we are less bad. We still have high number of reported gender-based violence despite changing to a victim-based approach and increasing resources, and the progress is still far too slow. When it comes to equality, the progress is also too slow. Yes, the number of women is increasing in the police, and they have a better chance of rising within the organization, with different education, different hiring processes, and now even a different admission in the special intervention units, the Vikings. A lot has been done, but we recently made a follow-up study on police work culture from a previous study in 2013. The results of that study will be released early next week, and it is safe to say that there is room for improvement. 39% of women in the police said that they had been harassed in the last 6 months, mostly by their co-workers or superiors in the police. Those numbers tell us that we need to do more, be more vigilant and critical to our culture, because we know that the culture is what allows these things to happen. So we need to continue, and a conference like this one gives us wind in our sails. If all these important leaders are prioritizing their time to participate in a conference on women in law enforcement, then we can draw energy from that, get better ideas and work harder. So it's back to work. Thank you again for letting me participate in this important venue. Thank you.
Really a very strong message about opportunity to have impact. And it is really very important to have this in mind when we are encouraging more women to take part in leadership, to be active in leadership. But right now we have one more story, and this will be from Lithuania. We have Deputy of Lithuanian Criminal Police, Ms. Eglė Maziliauskienė, and your story. You're welcome.
So once again, good afternoon to all. It's really a great honor to be here and to have the opportunity to share my story. We can all agree that women's leadership and equality, it's not just a matter of our own experience, but it's also a question of our society progress. In this conference, we're not only sharing our experiences and insights, but we are also But we're also showing other women and girls that their dreams and aspirations are realistic and achievable, and that together we're building a society where everyone can reach their potential regardless of the gender. When I entered the police academy about 25 years ago, one of the main lectures addressed to the female student asked out loud, "Why did you come here? What are you women going to do in the police?" I remember my disappointment and surprise at that moment, because when I chose my career, I have a very clear understanding of the purpose being a police officer, and I had a very clear idea of myself that's a part of that system. Back then, being a woman in the police meant facing not only skepticism of our colleagues about their physical capabilities, but also the distrust of the community as a customer. It took more efforts to those around me and to myself to prove myself that I'm an equal member of the police community, contributing no less to the public safety. But now, with more than 40% of women in the police force, it's clear how much progress we have made in context of gender equality during this period. I'm pleased that more and more people are realizing that being an officer, it's not just a question of physical strength or stamina. It is demonstration of competence, intelligence, effort, strategic thinking, and above all, of having very strong moral values. But have we done enough? My presence here is partly the answer. The number of women in the highest level police position in the Lithuanian police is still unacceptably low. To be honest, I am the one of the very few. I have seen very great examples during my career path that have been a huge source of inspiration and change. They are the ones I am most grateful to, for seeing the potential in a shy and unconfident officer, for demanding the highest standards, for making no exceptions, and at the same time for leading and supporting. From personal experience and examples, I can say that for me, women's leadership wasn't this much more than just being able to organize the teamwork. In particular, I can think of 2 women leaders in my career who showed great competence, empathy, creativity, willingness to do more than necessary, huge dedication to the profession, ability to assess a situation from different sides and point of views, and to make the optimal decision based not on the knowledge and logic, but also on intuition. Even today, I still remember when I, a young provincial police officer, came to the recruitment process at the Lithuanian Criminal Police Bureau, feeling terribly nervous and insecure. Looking at the selection panel, there was only one woman. At first impression, she seemed very cold, strict, very professional. But when I sat down in front of the panel and started answering questions, she was the only one who supported me with a warm eye contact, encouraged with a gaze, and guided towards the right answers. I never told her how much it meant to me then, that humanity, support, and encouragement in her eyes. Since then, I have kept that feeling myself. And now the tables stand, and I am sitting in the selection panel during recruitment interviews. I always remember how important it is to see a look of understanding and encouragement in a stressful moment, because I strongly believe that small things can make a big change. I'm very lucky indeed to work in an organization where I have support of male leaders and trust of my beloved colleagues. My institution is no place for categorization or classification. We are focused on ensuring that the professional and personal qualities of each officer are used for great possible effectiveness. At the same time, I understand very clearly that we have a very low number of women in leadership positions. And I think this is not a problem of structures or organizations. Of course, we can and should do more in each institution, but the focus must be on the societal attitudes and the process of developing the individuals. We still live in the world of stereotypes. There is still a perception in society that certain professions and behavior are not feminine, and that certain everyday duties and qualities are more gender-specific. As I think about myself and women around, we grew up feeling the pressure to be perfect, strong but not too dominant, sensitive and gentle but still determined. We need to be good caring mothers, daughters and wives, dutiful workers and exemplary members of society. Even when we have reached a high competence level, we often overcompensate. We set ourselves the very highest standards to work harder to prove our value, to justify being in management positions, and to constantly exceed expectations. And that, I think, is completely regardless in the field of the field in which we work. I believe each of us appreciates family support, the understanding and patience, the support and trust of colleagues. But for me personally, it has always been very important to have a leader, or to be more precise, to have an example to learn from, to understand what kind of person I want to be, what qualities I need to develop, how and why decisions are made, how much of myself needs to be given to my team members, and many other things too. And I also know I have and I have feel that within myself how important it is to be open and accessible. Even just having a cup of hot coffee with your leader is sometimes much more than self-development book. So I would like to express my sincere gratitude to this event, to all those who know the importance of motivation by example and are here to share and inspire. In closing, let me sum up in one sentence. Small things often lead to big changes, and together we can do so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that we bravely can count this story as success story and inspiration story. And it was really very interesting to hear about the importance of mentorship, which was discussed in our first part of the conference. And one very interesting moment was about how actually community, or actually customers or clients of the services of police officers, how they accept women in law enforcement. I think it is also a very important point, not only fellow officers working together, but community itself, how it accepts women in law enforcement. So thank you very much. If you are keeping questions, so if you have questions, so please keep them a little bit later. We will have a discussion. And right now we are turning to Finland again, and we will have our Deputy National Police Commissioner, Ms. Sanna Heikenheimo. Thank you.
Thank you. And first of all, I want to thank you, Madam Minister, for organizing this event. To make a long story short, my mother, as well as my first boss within the Finnish police, the former chief of the Finnish National Bureau of Investigation, Mr. Rauno Ranta, are two of the three people that deserve the biggest thanks for my career in the Finnish police. My mother for giving me three older brothers who have ensured that I do not waver easily, and Mr. Rauno Ranta for giving me a chance to show my abilities. The third person to thank for would have to be me. None of us can assume to rise in any organization without hard work, long hours, and sometimes tough times. It might sound naive, but all my life I have believed in John F. Kennedy's famous words: "Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country." I could not ask for a more interesting career than the one that I've had so far. I began my career in the Finnish MBI after studying law both in Finland and abroad. I specialized in criminal law and criminal procedure, especially money laundering. After a couple of years working in different tasks and learning all I could about the vast field of work within the Finnish police, Rauno Ranta gave me a chance to show my skills and nominated me as the head of the Finnish money laundering clearinghouse. He was a brave man, maybe some would say a risk taker, nominating a 31-year-old woman straight after maternity leave with no police training to be a boss for tens of mostly policemen. Luckily, all went well. The Finnish system of childcare and my closest family helped me to meet the requirements of the work. Echoing John F. Kennedy's words, I'm still of the opinion that none of us, regardless of gender, age, or other personal qualifications, can assume that institutions or the requirements of work are foremost adapted to us. It is us that have to adapt to the requirements of the work. Without a golden compromise in this matter, we as women or our organizations will not flourish. Even though the Finnish police organization was, and to some extent still is, male-dominated, I have never been harassed or downplayed, at least in the face. And thanks to my three brothers, I probably would have ignored such behavior anyway. I've always felt comfortable working with all kinds of people, both men and women, people of all ages, both police and civilians. And to once again remind you all of Mrs. Albright's words, to be honest, many times working with men is somehow more straightforward and pleasant. After serious hours and lots of traveling, I was nominated as the Assistant Chief of the National Bureau of Investigation, again a position that I really enjoyed. During my years in the NBI, I could witness changes in the organizational culture of the Finnish police. In my opinion, in a positive direction. Less formal, more talkative, more dynamic, and more development oriented. Less formality has encouraged a wider exchange of opinions within the police, both negative and positive, with all levels of organization. Before my current position as the Deputy National Police Commissioner, I worked for 7 years in the Police Department of the Ministry of Interior. There my duties included first the economic and personal matters of the Finnish police, then also the operational issues. As I have always had the urge to try my best in developing the police organization, maybe the most memorable task during the years within the ministry was preparing for a major organizational change within the police. As always, these changes are not easy. We people tend to be rather conservative in our thinking. As the Deputy National Police Commissioner, my day-to-day task is to lead the Police Operations Unit at the National Police Board. All operational questions concerning the Finnish police, be it, for example, criminality, public order, emergency services, traffic police, or police license services, fall under the responsibility of my unit. Even though I have not encountered obstacles in my career for being a woman, and the problem overall seems to be rather minor in the Finnish police, let us not be naive. Of course, there are women within the Finnish police organization that have faced problems just because they are women. Harassment and putting down, old school thinking, what women can and cannot do, and so on. This is, of course, something that we cannot allow at all. As employees, we have to make sure that policemen and policewomen have an equal opportunity to succeed in whatever they do. We, as an employer, would be dumb for not taking advantage of different skills and strengths of people. Diversity is what makes organizations strong to achieve the best possible results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, you have raised several very interesting topics, I think, for our later discussion about influence of family and influence of national system of child care. I think it is really very important. Family not always can fight the hostile environment, but national system, state's attitude towards child's care, towards children care is really very important. And of course, diversity makes organizations strong. It's everywhere in every country and in every organization. So thank you very much. And right now we are turning to Germany. I have to read a message at first. Unfortunately, it has become apparent at short notice that the Federal Minister of the Interior in Germany, Ms. Faeser, and Vice President of the Federal Criminal Police Office in Germany, Ms. Link, will not be able to attend the conference. Both of them wish us a successful and interesting exchange of ideas on this important topic. And right now we will have one more video message from Vice President of the Federal Criminal Police Office, Ms. Martina Link, and let's watch the video.
Ministers, Commissioner Johansson, colleagues, I would like to thank you cordially for your invitation to this conference. I'm very glad to be granted the possibility to share my personal experience and our measures to promote equal opportunities for women at the BKA. I look back on nearly 40 years at the BKA. In 1985, after having taken my A-levels, I started my studies as a criminal police officer, together with 7 further women and 20 men of my year. From 1995 to 1997, I completed further studies at the today's German Police University and have held various leading positions since then. Since 2020, I've been the first and, as yet, only female vice president of the BKA. My professional career is closely linked to the issue of women in leading positions. On the one hand, personally, because it shows how far we have come in this field, at least at the BKA, but on the other hand, also because of some experiences I gathered as part of my official duties and which I would like to bring into the discussion. At present, the BKA employs a nearly equal share of women and men, but only a quarter of the executive positions is held by women. The higher the position, the lower their share. Even much lower is the share of women in executive positions with family care responsibilities. And this is precisely where we have to differentiate between measures for the general promotion of women in executive positions and measures to reconcile family and work, which create the framework conditions making it all possible that women concerned can even think about a leading function. We have addressed these issues at the BKA already since 2011. At that time, a working group under my direction developed comprehensive measures to better reconcile family and work and promote women in executive positions. With the legal obligation to achieve an equal share in executive positions coming into effect, both issues were taken up again under the direction of our Equal Opportunities Officer and her team. The measures agreed are nowadays an important component of our strategic staff development. From my point of view, 3 aspects should be specially focused out in order to strengthen the share of women in executive positions. First, measures to promote the acceptance of women in executive positions. Second, approaching and promoting eligible women actively and is in respect of women with family care responsibilities. Third, measures to enhance flexibility in the performance of tasks. Coming to the first point, promotion of the acceptance of women in a profession dominated by men. 3 examples. A brief flashback to the year 1988. My start as a trained criminal police officer at the BKA was not very promising. In an operation of the German disaster identification team of the BKA, I was only admitted to the reporting unit at the BKA. Operational deployment abroad was reserved for male colleagues only, due to difficulties with separate houses and housing for women and men on site, as my superiors reasoned. This is different today. At the BKA, women are equal operational staff. But women in executive positions still are a rather rare species, even today, and are partly under special surveillance. When I became vice president, female colleagues approached me and said, "It's a woman's turn at last," while male colleagues congratulated me on my rapid rise. But I had more than 25 years leadership experience at that time, gained from various positions, such as 2 positions as head of division and 2 positions as head of group in different areas. My male colleagues have never heard such remarks. The expectations on management also differ in part. If a male superior holds his opinion vociferously and uncompromisingly, he is considered assertive. If a woman behaved in the same way, the judgment would be markedly more negative. Women largely lead in a different way, and according to my experiences, they should therefore avoid copying management styles of men, and they should find their own style, but they need to be encouraged and enabled to do so. And at the same time, it's important to overcome traditional patterns. This needs time and is also in part simply a generational question, which makes me very optimistic with a view to the future. Coming to the second point, active promotion of women in managerial functions. The question is, have we exhausted all possibilities to identify, purposefully qualify, and empower women eligible for the next vacant managing functions? In my experience, women have to be actively approached, encouraged, promoted, and networked. We have observed in the BKA that, on average, women perform better in our selection procedures than their male colleagues. But when management functions are to be filled, comparatively far fewer women submit an application. An important factor in this is that many women are very self-critical, that they reflect much more intensively about whether they are eligible for a higher position and can really succeed in the balancing act between career and family, and that they are not as well networked as men. And that is where our staff policy starts. Every year, since 2013, we have offered a mentoring program for female colleagues interested in a management position. So far, about 100 mentees have completed this program. The program is complemented by low-threshold offerings like mentoring, coaching, and women's network events. This is greatly supported by a strong equal opportunities officer who comes from a prominent management function herself and her team. Our objective must be to initially increase the share of female managerial staff primarily at the middle management level in the near term. Top positions will then feed thereon. And the third point, flexibility at work. The family model has broadly changed. The work-life balance is becoming more important, but men are also increasingly assume family responsibilities. A police management career in Germany requires the completion of a 2-year master program at the German Police University. During my studies, all courses were held on campus. There were no care facilities. So over years, the number of women who applied for these studies remained only in the 2-digit range. In my study program, we were more than 200 men and 10 women. Nowadays, we have study communities with the Länder adjoining the BKA locations to reduce the distance between the place of study and the place of residence. And there are family rooms on the campus. Moreover, digital courses like digital lectures are offered. Meanwhile, the flexible organization of working time, but also and mainly mobile work, makes it easier to reconcile family and work in everyday work later on. This also includes the implementation of real part-time work and the planned introduction of new work models like job sharing. I myself have never worked part-time, mainly because a reduction of work time would not have reduced the quantity of work. And job sharing or the flexible organization of working time were unthought of in those days. It was only during the COVID pandemic that the 100% compulsory presence applied at the BKA until then was clearly renounced. We now enable a very flexible organization of working time, being aware that we have to be available also at short notice in an operation. Regarding the introduction of job sharing, the BKA is in the process of preparing a concept at the moment. And nearly all staff members of the BKA have meanwhile been equipped with laptops and can thus work from home a lot or from abroad. The senior staff is equipped with mobile phones and available at any time. But we also need to honestly address the strains and restrictions which a managerial function in a law enforcement authority involves. Our perpetrators do not comply with working time arrangements, and not all work can be done with the use of mobile equipment. And we have to accept that some women specifically don't want these restrictions, so that I'm skeptical about whether equality of women and men in leading positions can actually be achieved in the near term within law enforcement. Finally, some personal experiences. What has helped me on my way to become an executive and in my work as an executive? The first is the willingness to questioning myself. In the next career step, it's always important that the task actually suits oneself, as regards both content and strain. Second, the courage to seize opportunities proactively, even if there is not a plan B for everything. I took over the management of a division when being the mother of a 6-year-old child, and with the attitude that things will work out somehow. The third is realistic expectations. Nobody said it was easy. 100% family plus 100% job plus 100% self-realization is not possible. Fourth, making deliberate use of differences in management style, not trying to copy male colleagues. Use your style. And last but not least, the necessary bit of luck, which is always part of a successful career. I want to encourage women to go their way. In the end, one has to make something of oneself and of the opportunities that present themselves under the given circumstances. So I can hopefully say in another nearly 40 years, I was the first, but only the first of many further female vice presidents of the BKA. Thank you very much.
Despite that, Ms. Ling cannot hear us, but really big thanks, great thanks for a very inspiring and very practical message. I think that if our one of tasks were to create a final draft of what we have discussed in this conference, it would be very good to follow all those points that were emphasized by our colleague from Germany. And of course, several aspects I can hear that they are repeating in many speeches today. And one of them is self-esteem of women, and to be brave, to be courageous, to at least apply for top positions, for management positions, for leadership positions. And of course, work-family balance is one more topic which is really very important and which was emphasized in earlier speeches and in this one. So right now we are moving from Germany to Belgium. And right now we will have a story from our colleague from Belgium, police advisor, chief superintendent, cabinet of minister, Ms. Stephanie Wagemans.
Thank you. Dear Minister, dear Commissioner, dear colleagues, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my personal experience and thoughts about women leadership in law enforcement. I'm a chief superintendent, but I don't currently hold a key position within the Belgian police. I hold the inspiring and rewarding position of advisor to a key person, the Minister of the Interior, Annelies Verlinden. I have no doubt that this current experience will strengthen my leadership and my leadership style, and inspire me for the future. After graduating in psychology, I began my career in 1999 as a detective specializing in sexual abuse and domestic violence cases. This is a typically female environment where my gender was never an issue. But even though I was a police officer, my colleagues in other departments did not see me as an equal. I was just seen as a social worker who could help in difficult cases. A few years later, when I was working as an investigator in a more masculine environment, I was the only woman with a rank, I realized the impact of my gender difference. I was surprised that I was constantly being compared with two other women. I heard a lot of statements like, you perform better than the other women, as if women were de facto not as good as men in this job. Throughout my career, being a woman has never been a disadvantage in competitive entrance exams or selection. For example, in my 2 applications for promotion to higher grades ranks, or in job selection in federal criminal police, for example. I've always felt that gender was not a fundamental issue for the organization. And although I have not seen a real committed strategy to promote women to the top, I've noticed that there has been a modest intention to bring women to the forefront for a few years now. Instead, I've noticed doubt or prejudice among colleagues. I've often heard statements like, you are more likely to succeed as a woman because they want more women at the top. I always found it offensive that when people talk about my potential success, they don't refer to my qualities, but to my gender. Other comments, sometimes even for my family or female friends, make me think that prejudice about gender equality are still very much alive. I was shocked to be asked whether taking on such a challenge will be too demanding for me or whether I would have enough time for my family. These kinds of comments can make us doubt ourselves, undermine our confidence, and perpetuate the idea of a glass ceiling that women are incapable of breaking. Another major obstacle in my career was the pressure I put on myself and the effort I had to make to ensure that my family didn't suffer because of my professional choices. Without outside help or a partner to support you, it's not so easy to have a career with high responsibility. We also sometimes create a glass ceiling by asking ourselves too many questions about our ability to take on challenges. So I think I have sometimes been my own worst enemy in my personal development by not believing in myself, by accepting various cognitive biases, and by setting my own limits. All these factors made me think that there is still a problem of culture and perception about the place of women in the work environment and in society in general. As far as possible improvement are concerned, I can think of several things. Firstly, promoting equal opportunities. I think it's important to focus our efforts on the unconscious and cultural prejudices that still slow down women's progress. I don't like quotas as such because they seem to focus on quantity rather than quality. I think we need to emphasize the leadership qualities of women. The same goes for me for flexible working hours. Promoting this flexibility for women stigmatizes us, I think. I would be more in favor of a work-life balance for both women and men. Thirdly, mentorship and sponsorship programs. I believe that networks of female managers offer women a space for exchange and reflection. as well as the opportunity to develop their careers by getting advice from their peers. 4, gender sensitivity training, education and communication. In order to change the culture and perception of the place of women, communication and training on diversity should be continued at all levels. This can promote a more inclusive and respectful workplace culture and reduce gender-based discrimination or harassment. And 5th, transparent reporting and accountability, collecting statistics and allowing transparent monitoring of the situation help to address any inequalities. In conclusion, I certainly don't want to be a man among other men, or a woman without personality who has to conform to certain expectations. I don't want to be chosen because I'm a woman and I have to fill a quota. I want to be chosen and recognized for my contribution to the organization. I want to be a woman who dares to be who is she. And I want to work in an environment that highlights the talent of all its managers, regardless of gender. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I don't know how you all sitting here, but I caught one interesting moment, which wasn't mentioned in our first section or in another stories, about comparison with other women, not with other colleagues, but especially other women, if there are more women working in the place. So thank you very much. And of course, family-related issues are always very, very important and really gender sensitive, actually. So thank you very much. And right now we are back to Finland. And right now, we are asking to present her story, Assistant Police Commissioner, Ms. Minna Ketola.
All right, thank you very much, Commissioner, Minister, and my dear colleagues. I was preparing for this speech by going through my history as, well, during all the years. I started to work as a prosecutor when I graduated from law school, and I worked many, many years in police administration, and I went quite thoroughly through that. What kind of experience do I have that I could share here about the Finnish way of handling things in police administration? And I have to say the same thing as my boss here, Sanna, that I'm very lucky. I have only good experiences. And I know I'm fortunate. I don't know what the reason is, but luckily this is the situation. But I got through or went through some common notices that I have been made during my career when following how my female colleagues feel working in the police administration, and what kind of sort of common problems we have, not just concerning women, but also other people working in police administration. I think sometimes we don't search enough about what kind of possibilities we have. For example, a long time ago, I had a thought that I could never work in police administration because I was not a trained police officer. I thought that no can do. But then I started to do some searching, and I thought that, okay, I have every possibility to work in police administration in certain positions. So that helped me to realize that, okay, there are no barriers there. I just have to figure out myself that what kind of positions I can apply for. So that is something that maybe we think that the work of the police is something that where you need to be physical and you have to be very strong and fast, but there are other opportunities. But sometimes I wonder that do we really see all the opportunities that we have? So I'm glad that I did my research and I'm in a position that I am now. And quite often as we have talked here as well, we consider that everybody wants to process and go forward in their careers. But I know a lot of colleagues that say that I'm quite happy with my position now, and I don't want to go any further. I don't want to proceed in my career, and that is just perfectly fine. And on the other hand, if I don't get chosen for a job, it's probably not, or it might not be because I'm a woman. I applied for many jobs, and I know that the person that was that was appointed for this position was better than me. I wasn't experienced enough. I didn't meet the qualifications. So it wasn't because I was a woman. I was pretty happy with the result because I knew that I wasn't the best. So delicate issues, and we have to be very careful that how we ourselves, what is our own attitude about these decisions that we face in real life. So I wrote down that we should not create a problem if there is not a problem. That is simple as that. And my own theory, wherever I work and wherever I go, is that I respect all the people that work in administration, no matter what the rank is, or no matter what the position is, no matter what the gender is. It doesn't really matter. So I think respect is something that gets you quite far, that we evaluate everyone's experience and our backgrounds and qualifications, and that is one really important thing as well. So my thoughts were quite common, nothing dramatic, but maybe something that has kept me going on and has helped me in managing my application processes and also my work in my current position. And these are the principles that I try to have in mind when I recruit people. It's not number one that if you are a man or a woman, it's about the qualifications. And I think that if we are as open as we can, we write down the qualifications, what we need for this specific job, then it's easier to make the decisions that who we want to pick in the position as well. So openness is one thing, the transparency that we have talked here as well. So that's very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you are very modest, because your words that do not create a problem. If there is no problem, I will write in my notebook on the front page for the future and will share with everyone when I return to university. So for this quota, thank you very much. And of course, it was very interesting to pick one more moment from your speech, that not only men are stereotyping women and have the vision of the place of women in society, but actually, and we women sometimes are stereotyping law enforcement and who can or cannot work there. So thank you very much for your insights. And right now we are returning to Belgium once more. And right now we have Policy Advisor, Digital Transformation and Innovation, Chief Superintendent, Cabinet of the General Commissioner of the Belgian Federal Police, very long, Ms. Anke Steckenborg. The floor is yours.
Okay, dear Minister, dear Commissioner, dear colleagues, thank you very much for the attention that you are giving to this subject, and as well for the invitation I received to represent the Belgian police here today in this forum. I would like to share with you my personal journey within the Belgian police landscape. With a university degree of criminology under my belt, I competed with hundreds of others about 20 years ago to get a direct ticket to the police officer training program. A conscious, but also, and I realized this even then, challenging choice not to start at the bottom of the ladder, as was more common, and then move up to officer through seniority afterwards, but to go directly to a leader's position, After this officer training, I began my career as director of an intervention service of a medium-sized local police zone. An operational position where the emphasis was on directing daily police patrols and where I went along in the field to coordinate actions on drugs, traffic, burglaries, or to supervise major events. If you ask me whether I have encountered challenges during my career, the answer is clear, definitely. But whether those can be directly related to being a woman, I'm not sure. I think rather the combination of being a woman, young, and unexperienced was the cause of that. Characteristics that were different from the more common and stereotypical profile of older, experienced men as officers. Especially in those early years of my career, I felt I had to prove myself more than my older male colleagues. I often felt like I had to justify my actions and make decisions well-founded. But isn't this perhaps more of a problem of perception? Don't we, as women, perhaps put too much pressure on ourselves sometimes? I personally think we literally stand in front of the mirror a bit more than men. But also figuratively, I think by often engaging in critical self-reflection and regularly questioning our actions. Specific to a police job is also the fact that in our society, the police profession is still considered a rather male profession because the work is strongly associated with strength, protection, power, and authority. For years, I have been used to seeing people around me react with surprise when I tell them that I work as an officer in the police force. So a change in mentality is also needed in this area in the broader society. Numerous studies on leadership, meanwhile, show that good leadership is not determined by power or strength, but by the ability to think and to act with human sensitivity and interpersonal skills. It is just those more soft skills that characterize women leaders and that help me get through those early years in a good way, I think. Namely, by using wonder and empathy. I always tried to be open, human, attentive to the opinions and input of others, and I did not hesitate to ask for immediate clarification when necessary. Searching for connection and balance has always been important for me in this regard. Connection between people and connection the dots to possible solutions. Then, after 11 years, I had the opportunity to move to a much more policy-oriented position at the office of the Minister of the Interior at that time. It was in full period of the terrorist attacks in our country in 2016. It became an exciting trip of discovery to direct and shape a security policy. I also combined this job with studies to get promoted to Chief Superintendent. And graduating in 2019 as Chief Superintendent, I then had the opportunity to join the staff of the General Commissioner within the Federal Police as his policy advisor. In those first years, I advised him mainly on operational files. Then I moved into a role of crisis manager during the COVID-19 period, and currently I am mainly engaged in supporting digital transformation and innovation within the Federal Police, also a male function. I'm grateful for the very varied course I have been allowed to take to the opportunities. It was because of my bosses, all men, by the way. They gave me that opportunity as a woman and supported me to dare to trust in my abilities. And I wouldn't be a policy advisor on digital transformation and innovation if I didn't ask my coworker, ChatGPT, the question of what exactly might be the added value of female leadership. I like to share 3 aspects I received in response of my colleague. First, diversity in thoughts. Women leaders often bring diverse perspectives and thinking styles to the table. This can lead to a wider range of ideas and approaches in making decisions and solving problems. Secondly, empathy and team orientation. Female leaders often exhibit a strong sense of empathy and tend to take their team members' needs and concerns seriously. They can focus on the development and growth of individual team members, which can increase motivation and commitment. And last but not least, multitasking and organizational skills. Women leaders often have strong organizational skills and the ability to multitask effectively. This is beneficial in complex and dynamic work environments. I think you will all join me in recognizing and perhaps even acknowledging these qualities. My answer obviously has more nuances than that. I fortunately also know men who have those qualities, and so I'd like to add some human touch to this artificial answer. I'm convinced that good leadership is independent of gender, but is awarded based on competencies. But promoting gender equality, which also allows the management team to reflect the diversity of society, does enable a police organization to better understand and address the needs and concerns to different communities. Therefore, as women in leadership positions, let us be a role model and inspiration to those women who are hesitant to pursue their ambitions or choose a job in policing. And let us all together, as leaders, create a culture where such opportunities are given and encouraged. I'm already prepared to take on this commitment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I realized that I have one more quota for my notebook. Very good quota, that good leadership is about ability to think, not physical strength. So thank you very much for this good sentence. And of course, one more aspect which actually was mentioned in almost all stories, that support from male leaders is also very important. And of course, multitasking. Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you very much. And really, we had very fascinating, impressive, encouraging stories. But I've got a message that leaders in top positions from the first session of this conference, they also want to share their stories. So let's start from our Minister of Interior, Ms. Agne Bilotaite. So the floor is yours for your story.
Thank you for your sharing stories and your openness. I would like also to share my personal experience. Since I became a Minister of Interior, my ability to manage public security and crisis was questioning. Like it is a man's world and there is no place for women. That is how it felt. Many times my appearance was discussed in public, even in parliament sessions. Once a female colleague parliamentarian asked me in a public meeting if the minister's job was not too hard for me as a woman. It was not to support me, not to show empathy, but to undermine. And today we heard examples of gender-based discrimination and the challenges faced by women in leadership positions. And I want to say loudly that it is not okay. And the reason that helped me to stay strong is the purpose. And my purpose is not only to do my best as a Minister of Interior and serve my country to protect our borders, but I want to lead by my example. And to all women officers who are listening, you are capable, you are worthy, and let's reach the highest position possible.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I really remember I also made a comment on TV that Minister of Interior is attacked because she is a woman, not because she is a minister. Yeah, also got quite several comments about me being not in my place. So it is familiar in not in the top position. This situation is familiar not only for those being in top positions in ministries or in law enforcement structures, but for those commenting political events as well. And thank you very much. And right now we have one more story. European Institute for Gender Equality, Ms. Karl-Jens Helle. So, your story.
Thank you so much. And to be honest, I haven't prepared a full speech, but I have just scribbled down some thoughts, and also while listening to the others, and very impressive stories. So I have spent most of my career in the public service, and so thinking back to how I became, let's say, head of unit, so basically starting management positions, it was actually a male head of unit or director who said to me, you know, I think you have potential to become a manager. And after having literally suffered under 3 female directors before that, it was such an interesting experience for me that someone apparently saw potential in me. So I started to follow management trainings, and then I applied for a job as head of unit in the ministry. And I remember that during one of my interviews, I think it was my DG who said, but how are you sure you're able to do this? And I said, listen, you're asking me, I'm a single mother, I have 2 kids, I combine my family life with a full-time job. Yes, I'm capable of doing this. I have survived so far, and I'm doing my work really, really well. So the multitasking, I fully recognize. But having this experience that someone saw my potential, I took the decision on the spot to help other women as well. And I can give you one very striking example, because when I was at head of unit, I had a very nice male director. At one point, a very, let's say, talented young woman in my unit from Moroccan background, she approached me and she said, listen, I have a question, because I see these 2 male colleagues mostly every day going to the director's office, and then they open the door and they chit-chat about sports and they have interesting conversations. I think they're even playing tennis with him. You think I should do the same to become more visible? And I said, well, can I ask you one question? Would you like to go through that corridor every day, knocking on his door, bending yourself around the doorpost, and then chit-chatting about tennis and sports and things like that? And she said, no. I said, well, don't do it. Be yourself, stay authentic. But if you want to become more visible in my unit, then maybe something I could do, because I had these sessions every Monday when we look back with the whole unit to the week before. I said, if it's okay for you, I will invite you to speak a bit more and to become more visible, because you have interesting knowledge to share, but you're always so silent. She agreed, and that's what I did. And I can tell you that she ended up in the end quite well in the ministry. So what helped me out? Someone seeing my potential, approaching me actively. It's what I do with young women. And I tell them, stay yourself. Don't copy the behavior of people that you don't even like. Yeah, stay authentic, because in the end, that's the only way you survive your career as well. Because how can we do this if we play a role every day? I think it was Miss Mazi Liauskine, if I pronounce well, who said that she got the question, "What are you doing here in the police?" Let me share one interesting experience that I had when I was asked by my minister to join a trade delegation that was headed by our prime minister to Turkey. So there was all these businessmen, and for the first time in history, also 10 female CEOs of companies were asked to join that mission. And I was asked to join as well, because I knew these women through a project that we were running to get more female in leadership positions. So we traveled with this huge group to Turkey, and then the first evening in the hotel, we were having drinks and sitting nicely together. And then one of these men asked me, "Can I ask you, what are you actually doing here with your female friends?" And I said, "Well, you know, I was actually going to ask you exactly the same." And then he looked at me and he said, "Oh, interesting question." I said, "Well, yeah, let's talk about it. But don't make yourself the norm of this delegation. I hate it." And then we had really nice chats in the following days, and we mingled. And suddenly, for these men, these 11 women were not more strange animals, but we were treated as if we were equal. Yeah. So if men ask you odd questions, ask the same question back, because it puts them really in this balance, or just ignore it. That's what I do. I think you also mentioned this, having brothers. Sometimes I just ignore, because why would you end up in a debate that doesn't lead anywhere? No. And then when I became a director, that's another, let's say, experience that I would like to share with you. At one point in my ministry, every year our SG would choose two people who could go to the training to become a director. And I so much wanted this. And I thought, okay, I can do two things. I can either wait until they approach me, but this won't happen, or I can ask for it. So I approached his assistant. I said, I want to speak with him. And I had this interesting meeting. And I said, I want to be proposed for that training. And he looked at me and he said, well, interesting. I hadn't actually thought about you, but we were more than 2,000 people. So why would he have specifically thought about me? He said, tell me, why would you like to do this? And I explained, and he said, okay, I'm going to propose you. And the only one who really doubted this was my mother-in-law, who the next day said to me, but how about Wessel, her son, my husband? How is he supposed to cope then when you become director and you maybe start traveling? And my husband luckily said, I will be fine. We talked about this. I support this fully. So a few lessons that I learned: be authentic, be honest, seize opportunities. So don't wait until someone approaches you and said, oh, yeah, I noticed you. Be active yourself. If strange questions are being asked, either ignore or ask the same question back. And let's help other women, indeed, because there's so many very talented and skilled young women who simply need our help. I stand on the shoulders of my predecessors, and I hope I can offer my shoulders to those young women, and I think it's our duty. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. I think that after the conference, we should cut your speech from YouTube and make those tips going through all the social media, because they were really very, very good and very practical, and especially that one, to be brave, to be yourself. Actually, it's the core of all the problems when we are trying not to behave as ourselves, and of course especially when we are trying to copy male behavior. Thank you very much again. And right now, I know that Commissioner wants to say some words.
Yes, thank you. And I would like to put it in a little bit the same way on lessons learned from my personal experience. So I have 4 different kind of lessons learned. My first is, for sure, being a female leader in a male-dominated environment is challenging. But remind yourself that you have power, and feel the power, and use the power. I'll give you one example from when I was appointed minister. I was 30 years old. My twins were 4 months, so it was challenging. And then I got this advice: use your power. You can decide when meetings take place, because they won't take place without you. Everybody would like to meet the minister. So I instructed my assistant, I say no to all dinners. I never go to dinners. we just propose a lunch, for example. And then I changed the working time so that those days that I would want to pick up from childcare, I always had to finish at a specific time, and you don't know, it's always like you just need to do this extra, And then we continued over phone when children were asleep, so the day could be finished. But this is my thing, to use the power, also to feel it, that you have the power and there's a lot of things you can do. And also to act as a role model. For example, I remember one time I was saying, I can't have a meeting at that time because I have something I need to do with my kids, with one of my child. And I got a good advice from him. I said, don't say that you have to go this with your kids. This is not good for you. You should say that you have another important appointment. And then I think, then I can't pave the way for others, saying that this is sometimes okay. Of course you have to do the full work, but you need some flexibility, because at the same time we can have others say, I can't have a meeting then because I have this tennis, or golf or whatever. So use your power, that's my first. Second is create a safe space, because you have sometimes to stand a lot of, difficult comments, some harassment, some difficult moments. So it's important to have a safe space together with friends or other colleagues that you really trust, that you can, be frustrated about it in a safe environment, and then come out stronger again to deal with it. My third thing is to recognize how you are being criticized. And at least in my case, I've almost never been criticized on how I do my job. I've been criticized because being a bad mother, because some kind of, potential weaknesses that nobody has really any proof of, but that might be weak, or I might not be able, or I might not, or how I dressed, or, things like that. And you can see that also as a strength. If they can't criticize you on the core task that you are there to do, well, it's good, isn't it? That means that you're doing your job in a good way. So I think you can use that also as a strength, that they are criticizing you on areas where that is not really the core thing of your duty. And my last lessons learned is what everybody's been on this, to support others. And one way that I think is really important is to intervene. For example, here, when somebody speaks, everybody listens. That is not always the case, Sometimes, especially when a woman speaks, men started to, chit-chat with each other and do other things, or, just... and we should not accept that. And it's important to support others, saying, shh, she's speaking, intervene. Or, for example, if there is a very bad comment, if possible, to intervene directly, say, what are you saying? This is it feels so good if you are the one that being victims of this kind of behavior, when somebody else steps in and support you. If not possible to intervene directly, at least come to that woman afterwards and say, I saw what happened. That was really unfair to you. Because I think this kind of others can see the same also helps strength. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think we will have another fragment from YouTube to cut, and all those tips to put in all social media to circulate, because they are really very encouraging and really very practical. So thank you very much. And I know that Minister of Interior from Finland, Ms. Mari Rantanen, also want to share her story.
Well, thank you. I'm trying to be briefly, because we are lack of time, and I would have many of stories of my life. If I start, I think I have quite interesting life, I would say. It's been not so easy, but very interesting, and how I end up probably in this position and my career. I was 16 years old when I was when I decided to become a police, and well, I couldn't because at that time they didn't accept shorties. I'm only 162 centimeters, and the qualification was, I think it was over 170 centimeters. So then I ended up studying emergency nursing, which is very interesting world as well. I was working in paramedic in ambulance 16 years. And then I told to my friends that, okay, because I was single mom at that time, I told to my friends that if I don't find husband before I end up my 30s, I will go to police academy. Fine. I found him just before I end up my 30s, but I have these bachelor parties, and my friends were making my bachelor parties as a police academy, and they brought the brochures how to apply as a police, and they left it to my kitchen's table. And when the party was over, I was looking that brochure that, well, this is interesting. So I got husband, we get married, and then I get in the police academy. I tried, and it was so I loved that too. It was I was so lucky and actually lucky to get there and have that opportunity as well. I like it very much. But at the time we were lack of money in government, so nobody got work when we were graduated. So I went back to my ambulance work, and then things were just happening, and I end up in Parliament 2019. And now I found myself very surprisingly from a minister position, but I have to say that I feel very very good because my ministry is administration. All these, both of these, my previous positions, fire departments and the polices, and I feel so privileged to be in this position, and it probably helps a little bit because I know why, for example, police need some kind of tools, how they will use it. So it's a very nice thing, and it's not easy to be a minister. It's a lot of work, long days, but and I have to say that we have been talking today a lot about the support from another woman, but now I have to bring up one man who is my husband, and he's my basic rock. He's always there. He's taking care of many of the things in home and with family at the moment. So I have to say that being a strong woman, a capable woman, that you can do your job as good as possible. For my case, it means that my husband is without him I couldn't do this. So I have to bring him up. He's a good guy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can really understand you, being only 1 meter and 63. I can affirm that it is possible to be seen other ways. So thank you very much for this aspect as well. And right now we have CEPOL Executive Director, Ms. Montserrat Marin Lopez. Your word, your story.
Thank you for the inspiration you gave to me, all of you, at different levels, of course. Well, I will try to summarize. I start from at the basic rank, then I'm also a psychologist. Then all my promotions were by open competition, so I have been in public order, immigration, serious and organized crime, forensics, and etc. Training activities, election panels, etc. In every promotion, my selection panel were men. So I think we have to change this. We have to reinforce this idea that at least they have to have some training about gender perspective, because if not, we are promoting what is named homosocial reproduction, that is to be positive towards the people who have similar characteristics. So I think we have to revise not only the job description and the appraisal, but also to establish proper balance in the selection panel, or at least, if they are men, to train them on their perspective of gender. On the other hand, I would like to share with you the concept of intersectionality, because we are not only women minority. We are not only young. When we are young, under scrutiny, as their minister has said, when you are old, you are also too old. So we have to take into consideration that we are facing different kind of prejudice, and it has to be consistent as intersectional. I want also for you to think about two questions. One of them, why women are not in the SWAT police or special forces in some countries? Why? Why don't we explore this? Because we are not present in some countries. We are not allowed to join special forces. In Spain, we have historical since 1982. So I think it's enough time. Another question, why are we reproducing the stereotypes? I understand family issues, but we are reproducing this. Now we are facing another societies. Single parents, women that doesn't want to be mothers. So why are generalized in general that family issues? If we want to be inclusive, we have to promote flexibility for everybody under our supervision, independently. If they are single mothers, single homosexual couples, heterosexual couples, or they have to take care also of their elderly people, because sometimes we don't consider the people who has also another responsibilities, not only children, but also parents. So we have to change also and not reproduce this idea that women is associated always with mother. No. We have to establish a proper space, a flexibility time for everybody. And regarding the leadership, fully agree with you about that. We have to develop inclusive spaces by transformational leadership. So we have to recognize the added value of every single individual and minority. But it's not only to recognize them, we have to put them at the same level. So I think we have to empower women because we are a minority. So we need to establish this networking and promote a more objective and fair environment. Because as the Belgian colleague said, and Catherine de Vol, in every single promotion I have, one man has said to me, oh, indeed, in my selection panel, not at the selection panel, but with other candidates for my current position, I would suggest this. Oh, you are a woman. It's a problem because you are a woman. So probably you will get the post in every single promotion. And I think we have to eradicate these attitudes through training and changing and creating a new values that are shared by men and women. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, especially for that extraordinary point about taking care and flexibility in job for those not only having small children, but for those who have to take care of sick parents, old parents, or even grandparents. Actually, I don't know how it is in other countries, but in Lithuanian labor code, we do not have regulation providing flexibility at work. So it is really a very huge, important problem. I have personally had this in my life, and in reality, I was very grateful for my head of the department and head of the faculty and for rector that they provided for me inside on their own volunteering basis that flexibility, but not at national level. Not every person, men, women, it doesn't matter, has such flexibility. So it is really a very important question, and I think in the future we should discuss more about it. And of course, intersectionality. It's very important because being women is not the one point. Young woman, old woman, different race, different ethnicity, different gender issues, some gender issues, aspects. So nationality. So it's really very, very important. Or even living in not that neighborhood. So not the right kind of neighborhood. Yeah. So these two questions are of extreme importance, and we are still talking about them not very much, not enough. So thank you very much. But right now we have one more. Head of the Operational and Analysis Center from Europol, Julia Vetwa.
Thank you. When being the last one means that many of the thoughts that I wanted to share with you has already put on the table. But let me to focus and briefly on three topics that I would like to share with you, my personal experience and my thought. The first one is about being the first on a role of men. And this is something that many of us will have shared around the table, that we were the first one in positions that were traditionally allocated to men. In my case, in the National Police, I was the first female investigation in counterterrorism, jihadist one in Barcelona, but also, for example, the first manager, female manager in the Drugs and Organized Crime Squad in Malaga. And of course, I need to face many changes that has been already shared by all of you. But even at international level, I was the first operational director in Interpol headquarters in Lyon, when these positions were only occupied by men at this time. And as I mentioned before, the ever first female manager at Europol. And we are talking about 7 years ago, so we're not talking really about the prehistory. But what I wanted to put here is there is nothing wrong not to be anymore the first in a role allocated to men. Our young colleagues now, maybe they are not going to be the first one to be in this position, and there is nothing wrong, the opposite. On the contrary, I think that is very good, because that means that some progress has been done in the common goal that we have to make our working environment in the law enforcement as a very inclusive one. This is the first idea that I wanted to share with you. But we need to pay attention. We cannot stand on that. Progress done in 10 years can be lost in 1 year if we don't pay enough attention to promote and to support our colleagues to get leadership positions. The second idea is about example of mentorship that has been already raised by some of you. The young women today in law enforcement, they are very lucky because they can benefit from both men and women examples to follow. That was not the case in my generation. And they can also benefit from men and women mentoring and support. And this is something that don't happen before. And this brings me to the third idea. We need to include more men in this discussion. And this is really the next step that we need to take. It's something that Catherine is very engaged in the International Gender Championship, in this split of gender parity panels, not only for the selection procedure, but also in this type of discussion. We need more men around the table. We need to listen their stories about working with women and working under the leadership of women. We need them here. And they also need to be the example to follow for the inclusion and diversity in our law enforcement. So men, not anymore in the second round, okay? The next time we need to have more women around this table. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and especially about gender parity and mixed conferences, not one gender domination. Because I've got some remarks from those watching us on YouTube that we are men and that they feel discrimination of males in this conference. Nonetheless, thank you very much. And maybe there are some other people, persons, wonderful officers who would like to share their stories.
Yes. Oh, thank you very much, everybody, Commissioner, Minister, and colleagues, for the inspiring stories. Of course, working in the Commission, I come a little bit from a different field, not really from operational police work, but I was very happy that one of the colleagues already mentioned, the colleague from the Institute of Gender Equality, that the Commission is actually an example in terms of women working there. Just to give you an idea, we have 50% of women in the Commission, 61% in my DG, the DG Home for Security and Migration. In my directorate, 55%, the Directorate for Security, 55% of the staff is women. And then, of course, we have all the role models also. The Commissioner, the Director General is indeed, as mentioned, also a woman. And my new director is also a woman. So we have these role models. Then we have, I have to say, also programs. We have, for example, female talent development programs, which are very supportive. Then we have training as well. For example, I followed a course which is called To Be or Not to Be a Manager, specific for women. So you learn the challenges that women especially have. So I really believe that the Commission in that sense, and we have to also be an example. Doesn't mean, of course, that in my work gender doesn't play at all a role. I do echo the feeling that all these initiatives also give the feeling that women are at certain positions because they're a woman, not because of their skills. This is often said by male colleagues, like, yeah, that woman got that position because it's a woman. And that is more of my own work. I do international negotiations on information exchange for law enforcement purposes. And there I do notice, because there, of course, the experts on the other side are often from ministries of the interior, but also ministries of justice. And there I often notice that the main male is really very dominant there. For example, the lead negotiators, I was checking the figures that we have, were all men. And also what I noticed is that it's mainly the men speaking. So even if there's women, it's mainly the men taking the floor, or the women that are the technical ones, or the lawyers maybe, often also. In that sense, I've also been referred once to a colleague as the bad cop. So in that sense, I have been a cop, because I'm a lawyer actually. So I do notice indeed that in these negotiations, there's still some male dominance. So indeed that corresponds a bit to the experience that you all have. And maybe, yeah, one final thing. Recently we had one of those male elite negotiators being replaced by a woman. And after 5 years, we finally reached agreement. Now, I'm not saying that this was because of this woman. Actually, I think there's more reasons, but at least I think it didn't harm. So I think that's really also a successful story that we have in that sense. Yeah, that's what I would like to say, but thank you again.
Thank you very much. Maybe there are others who would like to share their stories. If no, so I will make some concluding remarks, actually from your speeches, from the first section and from the second. First of all, we should remember and tell others that gender does not define skills.
This is, I think, number one tip. Then we should be brave and support other women. And the emphasis on being brave. Sometimes we are brave for ourselves, for promoting ourselves, but maybe not so helpful for other women. But of course, men should be active participants as well, because gender equality is everyone's business. We should talk loudly about gender inequality, but constructively, and we should respect ourselves and respect others, men. And definitely, such events as this, such meetings are of extreme importance. Especially, I, of course, make emphasis on the second part of the conference on sharing the stories, because I repeat once more, sharing is caring, and it's really a very important phrase. And as the event is concluding, so there will be several concluding remarks from the host of this conference, from the Minister of Interior, Ms. Agne Bilotaite.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy that today we had an opportunity to speak for women and to women. It is important to speak up, but even more important to be heard. I hope that our discussion and our personal experience and insights can inspire women in law enforcement. Our goal today and my personal mission is to encourage and empower women. This conference is not just a platform for discussion. It is a call for action. And I hope that maybe next conference will be maybe, I don't know, in Finland or in somewhere, but next time I think it can be with male and female balance. I hope that together we can change situation, and everyone who shares stories today highlight the importance of support and mentorship. And this is an area where we can strengthen our efforts together. And we should also use the power of our collective actions and cooperation, sharing good practices and experience between governments and our law enforcement institutions. This is the way to go, and I hope that we can have these real steps at EU level and at national level. Thank you all for this fruitful discussion. Thank you very much. And I hope that we have some commitment to do more for women's empowerment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.